Audiobook title from Power Fantasy Depression Game, Roll 02, Chapter 31 to 60. Original title I thought I reincarnated into a music or apparently. This Rimdark tragedy. Chapter 31 better late than never getting kicked out of Lena's party was a massive oversight on my part. In a school life where staying on her good side basically guaranteed a smooth ride, I couldn't figure out how I'd ended up in such a tight spot. I had a theory, though. Since Sharon was at this academy, the narrative weight of the world was shifting away from Lena and toward her. In the original story's apocryphal arc, Lena becomes the literal embodiment of vengeance after her sister's death. As many fans knew, she eventually gets her revenge, but the death of Rosen was the specific trigger that drew the lethal ire of Professor Natalie Frigga, who was actually Alyssa Callisto in disguise. But what if that never happened? Sure, Lena would still be motivated to hunt demons because her home, Dolgorov, was attacked. She'd train hard, no doubt, but she wouldn't have that same terrifying, world-shaking drive she had in the original timeline. To someone like Alyssa, the current Lena wasn't worth the effort of being an arch-nemesis. There was no deep, karmic bond between them beyond the usual human vs demon trope. Since the ghost of the hero wasn't haunting Lena, her role in this story had shrunk significantly. She was just a strong girl now, a girl who couldn't even claim the title of the false hero. The demons probably didn't even know what to do with her. Are they planning to use the chaos of this emergency mission to take Lena out? I wondered. Lena was strong ridiculously so. The demons had to be keeping an eye on her, but without her connection to Alyssa, her plot armor had basically evaporated. Monica, I'm sorry we couldn't be on the same team this time, Lena said, looking concerned. Please just promise me you'll stay safe out there, okay? Stay safe, huh? I sighed. You too, Lena. Don't go dying on me. It was a bit of a tall order. We were being sent into a situation where actual veteran Holy Knights were being slaughtered, and she was asking me not to get a scratch. In the game, this Chimera attack event was a great way to farm experience points, but for the mob characters in the background, the casualty rate was horrifying. I wasn't really worried about Lena, though. She had Carla and another disguised demon watching her. Those two wouldn't stand a chance against Lena even if they tried a backstab. She'd be fine. I was the one in trouble. My teammates were the very people who had created these chimeras in the first place. On top of that, Nora, who I barely knew, seemed to absolutely loathe me. It felt like the universe was actively trying to find new and creative ways to kill me. Still, I had an ace up my sleeve, a trump card that no one else in this academy or this world knew about. Let me set the scene. There were 90 of us student knights in total, split into 30 teams. We were stationed in a wide circle outside the walls of the Holy City. Londamel. We hadn't been told much. A new breed of magical beast had suddenly appeared near the capital and smashed through the front lines. Because so many regular soldiers were wounded, they had to reorganize the units and call in the students for an emergency deployment. Our job was to hold the final line of defense until the main forces arrived. The rumors flying around about these monsters matched the chimeras from the game perfectly. Each one looked different, with no consistent physical traits. They had a nasty habit of eating people and spitting them back out before they were even digested. And most importantly, divine relics didn't work on them, because these creatures were spliced with holy beast DNA. The usual elemental advantages of sacred arms were useless. Most veteran knights expected a quick win using their holy powers and got a nasty surprise when their blades barely left a scratch. That was why the casualty count was so high. And my luck only got worse. Barrett and Nora, the duo behind this nightmare, had vanished the moment we hit the battlefield. From my knowledge of the game, I knew exactly what they were doing. In the early chapters, if you recruited them as AI allies, they'd constantly slip away during missions. While they were gone, they were busy cooking more chimeras. It was just a case of an arsonist playing firefighter. They weren't even bothered with the firefighting part. They were just setting the world on fire. In a video game, you could use a power play strategy to bring them along to trigger the event, then solo all the enemies for massive XP. But this was reality, and I definitely wasn't the protagonist. Hey you, student, Monica, right? The team leader shouted. Where the hell did your partners go? I'm sorry, sir. I have no idea. I yelled back. TCH, useless. Every one of you kids thinks this is a game. It's bad. Just stay back. If you can't even manifest your sacred arm properly, you're just going to get in the way. He was a regular Holy Knight captain, just a mob character who was destined to die in the original script. but he was still leagues stronger than me. I couldn't exactly talk back. I had to face the grim reality of the situation. In the game, the number of chimeras increases with every wave, I remembered, breaking into a cold sweat. It started with 4, then 2 more would join every few minutes. It capped out at 20, and by that point, even a high-level Lena would struggle to survive alone. So why am I looking at 20 chimeras right now? The odds were soul-crushing. There were 16 of us left, including me, and I was dead weight. 6 of our group were already unconscious and bleeding out. Don't you dare ruin our grade point average. Nora had mocked me earlier. Looking at this carnage, I realized she didn't care about grades. To a demon like her, if our entire team got wiped out, it just meant there were no witnesses left. She'd said it just to twist the knife. Damn it, the sacred arms really aren't working. The 20 chimeras began to close the distance, one by one. They lunged, sinking claws and teeth into the knights. It was over. We didn't have the firepower to break the stalemate. Captain, we can't hold them! I screamed over the roar of the beasts. We need to fall back and hold out until another team can reinforce us. If we could just wait, surely Sharing would show up. I couldn't exactly tell him that a 10-year-old girl was our only hope, so I tried to frame it as a tactical retreat. And what if the other teams are in a worse spot than us? The captain roared, his eyes bloodshot. We kill as many as we can. We thin the herd so the others have a chance. Don't you forget the walls of the holy city are right behind us. He let out a defiant battle cry, and I realized there was no stopping him. But the monsters didn't care about his courage. As if mocking his words, the chimeras tore through the line, one by one. The knights fell, the captain's down. No, I don't want to die. We should have listened, we should have waited for help. I'm out of here. When the leader finally collapsed, the remaining mobs who were still much stronger than me broke rank and ran for their lives. Are you kidding me? I thought, paralyzed. I wanted it to be a joke, but it wasn't it. There were wounded knights lying in the dirt, unable to move. Are they really just going to leave them? Maybe I should leave too. They were just background characters. I'd spent my whole life making cold calculations to survive. If the world was going to have a happy ending, I needed to be alive to see it. I should draw my weapon. My sacred arm was specialized for one thing, running away. If I used it now, I was the only one here with a guaranteed chance of survival. Even in this literal hell, there was no sign of Sharon. I felt like an idiot for holding onto her as my ace for so long. The hungry eyes of the chimeras locked onto me. One of the massive beasts tensed its muscles and leapt, a blur of fur and teeth hurtling through the air. It was too fast. I wouldn't even have time to draw my blade. So your promise was just a lie. Sharon! Good grief. A cool, awed voice drifted through the chaos. Stop screaming like a banshee, you moron. True strength is found not in the power to destroy, but in the integrity to remain while others flee, for a promise kept in the darkness is a light that never fades. Chapter 32. A thug worries about his Kalma. She really should have just run for it. These student knights were nothing but glorified cannon fodder, thrown together in a panic. Even if it hadn't been Monica, 20 chimeras was a ridiculous number for anyone to handle. For someone who claimed she'd do anything to secure a happy ending, even if it meant treating human lives like disposable pawns, she sure turned into a pathetic coward when death actually stared her in the face. She just couldn't bring herself to abandon them. Stupid doesn't even begin to cover it. But then again, I've never really hated that kind of stupidity. That's one. Now die. My fist whistled through the air, finding its mark with surgical precision. The sound was a symphony of violence of the sharp crack of displaced air, the wet crunch of a shattering skull, and the high-pitched, gurgling shriek of a chimera losing its life in the brief second it was allowed to scream. It all happened in a single heartbeat. Oh, for heaven's sake, they don't cry. They don't beg. The experience points are absolute garbage, and their breath smells like a sewer. And on top of all that, they've got holy beast DNA mixed in. I snarled. I'm supposed to be the most animal-loving person on the planet. You know, do you beasts really want to be slaughtered that badly? The impact felt disgusting. Killing these things was definitely going to bloat my Kalma value, likely because of that holy component stitched into their twisted bodies. What a trash event, I thought. I'm going to have to wash off the karmic filth from the bastards who created these things later. Anand mastery, street fighting, martial arts, Zenith 3 maxed out skills pulsed within me, transforming this small, delicate body into a living weapon of mass destruction. If I kept punching and kicking them to death, my Kalma would skyrocket with every one of the remaining 19 monsters I put down. That's where the mercy skill comes in handy. No matter how hard you hit or kick, The target always clings to life with exactly one hit point. It's a wonderful skill for, well, I'd call it interrogation, but most would call it torture. Just die already. I'm going to engrave the laws of the food chain into your pathetic, broken genes. I moved like a blur, showing zero mercy as I hammered fists and boots into the bellies and faces of the misshapen freaks. It took me, what, less than 30 seconds to suppress all 20 pests. That oversized dog bites was a much better workout than this. To think 15 nights, not counting Monica, since she's useless, couldn't even lay a finger on these things despite their numbers. The power gap was honestly embarrassing. Good grief. Well, not like it's my problem. I let out a long, bored exhale. It hadn't even been enough to count as a warm-up, just a one-sided massacre, though technically 19 of them were still breathing. You lucky girl. How's it feel to be plucked out of a dumpster fire of a situation? I looked down at Monica, whose legs had turned to jelly from pure terror. I was genuinely curious to see her reaction. I hoped she was enjoying the fresh air. After all, I'd gone out of my way to save her skin. Sharon, I really, honestly thought you'd abandoned me. Gross. Don't come near me with snot rolling down your face. Cack, I slapped her away without thinking. Honestly, you can't blame me for that one. After a few seconds of twitching on the ground, Monica managed to scramble back to her feet. I'd hit her pretty hard, even without my skills active. I guess being a student night counts for something after all. Right, first things first, she said, catching her breath. Thank you, Sharon. I'd be dead if it wasn't for you. You're very welcome. I should probably apologize for being late. I wasn't sorry in the slightest, but words are free, and they keep people happy. You were late on purpose, weren't you? She muttered. You waited for everyone else to be knocked out before you stepped in. Huh, obviously. Why else would I wait? If those mighty holy knights saw a little girl saving their hides, it would have bruised their fragile egos beyond repair. The guys passed out in the dirt over there should be thanking me for my kindness. You or no, never mind. Forget it. Monica started to snap back but thought better of it, swallowing her anger and shifting the subject. So can I help these people? Is it okay to save them? Hey, you don't need a permit to be a do-gooder. Honestly, I expected you to just leave them for dead. As long as Monica didn't get in my way, I didn't care what she did in her spare time. I didn't know what path led to her happy ending, but I couldn't see how saving a bunch of nameless mob characters would help her get there. But if she wanted to play the saint, I wasn't going to stop her. I have zero interest in her happy ending anyway. It doesn't hurt me, and it doesn't help me. So I might as well ignore it. Actually, if you really want to help them, go finish off the 19 I didn't kill. Leave the one with the crushed face alone. That one's already done. I picked up a discarded sword by a blade and held the hilt out to her. WH what? You didn't kill them? No, like I said, that holy beast stuff messes with my calma. I don't like my record being stained by trash like this. But I'm sensitive about my reputation. If you want to save these pathetic knights, finish the monsters off now. You could kill them in their sleep right now, but in 10 minutes, they'll be back on their feet, and you would stand a chance. Even as we spoke, the Chimera's freakish regenerative abilities were already stitching them back together. I have no interest in bullying failures over and over again. Now, if they were like Risen, a pet with a master I actually wanted, despite I happily grind them into paste. But we're burning daylight here, Monica. Fien, I'll do it. I'll finish them, she said, her voice trembling but firm. And after that, what are you going to do, Sharon? I looked at her like she was the stupidest person on earth. Why was she even asking? Isn't it obvious? I'm going on a fun little demon hunt. A hand extended in a moment of despair is a mercy that outweighs 1,000 words, for true kindness is not measured by the speed of the arrival, but by the sincerity of the heart that chooses to stay. Chapter 33. The human monster, the distant war cries of the holy knights, and the guttural roars of the chimeras echoed through the air. Nora wondered briefly how her former team was faring. Honestly, it would be much easier to clean up the mess if they all just died, she thought, especially that girl Monica, Lena's little shadow. It was a hunch, nothing more. Monica tried to hide behind those ugly glasses and a nervous stutter, but she couldn't mask the way she looked at people. Those eyes of hers made a very clear distinction between humans and those who weren't. My instincts are usually dead on. Nora mused. If she's still breathing when this is over, I'll just kill her in the confusion. Monica wasn't a powerhouse like Lena, and she certainly didn't have any influence over the other students. Even if she started screaming that there were demons hiding in the academy, nobody would believe a word she said. Still, I have to hand it to Lena, she's got a big heart. If it were me, I wouldn't even let a piece of trash like that into my line of sight. Nora wondered what kind of pathetic trick the girl had used to worm her way in. She'd have to ask before she ended her, and more importantly, she wanted to know how the brat had seen through their human disguises. That was the extent of Nora's interest in Monica, a pebble on the side of the road, no more like a piece of litter, and litter belonged in the bin, since it seemed the other demons were too blind to notice the trash. Nora figured she'd have to be the one to take out the garbage. Such a chore. Maybe after I kill her I can get Sharon to cheer me up. She thought of the girl that even the man-hating Rosen had failed to claim. Nora didn't feel a shred of actual desire for that underdeveloped body, but once Monica was out of the picture, she planned to steal the girl's spot and share a bed with her. My, Nora, you seem to be in a wonderful mood. Barrett emerged from the thick, sun-drenched woods, his clothes spattered with blood but a wide grin on his face. He had chosen this secluded spot specifically to avoid prying eyes, and you, Barrett, was the experiment a success or beyond my wildest dreams? The hypothesis was spot on. I'm a little disappointed with the quality of the base materials. They were just humans who had been coughed back up by chimeras and were barely clinging to life, but I used 22 of them. At this point, calling it a chimera is an insult. This is a homunculus. Barrett spoke with a twisted sense of reverence for the lives he had snuffed out to reach this point. To a human, 22 lives were a tragedy. To a demon, they were merely ingredients. With a flourish of pride, he announced its name. I call her Legion. A monster that is many yet one. The creature let out a birth cry that sounded more like a death rattle. It was an abomination. A violation of the natural order that crammed 22 separate souls into a single vessel. It was like trying to fit the entire ocean into a single teacup. Barrett's absurd theory had only become reality through the use of an experimental soma, and the price of eternal, agonizing pain inflicted upon the creature's body. At first glance, Legion didn't look all that different from a human, since she was crafted from human parts. Her form remained mostly humanoid. She appeared female, but she was tall, with a terrifyingly muscular build that screamed predator. She had elongated canines and jagged claws. Where the whites of her eyes should have been, there was only a murky, bottomless black, surrounding pupils of vivid, burning crimson. Even a blind man could tell this thing was lit human. Her body was racked by the phantom pains and sheer terror felt by the 22 people at the moment of their deaths. Her sanity had snapped the moment she was born, leaving behind only a monster that viewed every living thing as an enemy. Raag! Ahaha! That's no way to speak to your father. Demonic released the hermit's lantern. The weapon Barrett drew was an ancient, weathered lantern. It had no ornate decorations, but the pale, ghostly blue flame flickering inside had a terrifying property. It stopped the movement of anyone who looked at it. To the moment Legion saw the light, her body locked up. Through some unknown principle, she was rendered immobile. She could do nothing but twitch her eyebrows and the tips of her fingers. The hermit's lantern was a simple support-type weapon designed to restrict movement. However, the terror of being frozen and defenseless before an enemy made even the mindless Legion realize that the light was dangerous. Ha! Feel the weight of it. The path to us is far too long for a brainless fool. Go on, Nora. Finish the job. Yeah, whatever you say. Without waiting for a second command, Nora stepped into the light's periphery, careful not to block it, and delivered a brutal kick to the creature's ribs. I'm no expert at training stray dogs, but I'm sure a few broken bones will help her understand. That look in her eyes. You were holding back, weren't you, Nora? Not really. I'm no Carla, but I gave her a decent shove. The thing is just surprisingly tough, despite being paralyzed and used as a punching bag for a demon's strength. Legion's eyes still burned with raw, unbridled killing intent. Garagh, impressive for a newborn, but we really must correct this arrogance thinking you could actually defeat us. Nora, give her another one. Ugh, do it yourself for once. Now, don't be difficult. You know I can't move while the hermit's lantern is active. Aren't men supposed to do the heavy lifting? Come now. Nora, we live in an age of equality. God, what a garbage weapon. Fiend. It was undeniably powerful, but Nora was clearly annoyed at having to do the grunt work while Barrett stood there like a noisy statue. She wound up for a second kick, yet Legion's spirit refused to break. Annoyed by the creature's resilience, Nora clicked her tongue and raised her leg for a third strike when a voice rang out. Wow, Nora, I didn't know you liked picking on the weak. That's a real no-no. A sweet, childish, and deeply unsettling voice sliced through the tension of the clearing. What? Nora knew that voice. It belonged to the 7-year-old girl who had been admitted under special circumstances, the student who was supposedly too young and inexperienced to be allowed on the battlefield. Sharon, where are you? Nora tried to keep her voice sweet and inviting, but something was wrong. Why am I breaking out in a cold sweat? Me? I'm not even standing in front of a greater demon. It was a physical reaction she couldn't explain. A sudden, drenching chill ran down her spine, and then the reason became terrifyingly clear. I'm right here, Nora. The voice came from right beside her. True power is not found in the mastery of others, but in the mastery of oneself. For he who harms the helpless only reveals the hollowness of his own soul. Chapter 34, inevitable beside her. Right there, within arm's reach. There was absolutely no way Nora could have missed someone approaching that closely. I don't care how small Sharon is, and yet it had happened. When Nora slowly looked down, those golden eyes were staring back up at her, dancing with a mocking glint. The next question hit Nora like a physical blow. What are you even doing here, Sharon? She shouldn't have been there. Despite being a student knight, Sharon was only 7 years old. The academy had officially exempted her from the front lines, claiming she was too inexperienced for the horrors of the battlefield. Nora knew that was just a convenient excuse, but the reality remained Sharon should have been miles away. So why was she standing here? Pull back. Now. Twist away and force Sharon into the light of the hermit's lantern. If she's caught in the glow, this inexplicable terror will vanish. But wait. Terror? Was she actually terrified of a 7-year-old brat? Nora, something's wrong. Head back. It was Barrett who finally broke the spell of that unnatural fear. His voice, usually booming with arrogant confidence, was sharp and strained with urgency. I know. You don't have to tell me. If Barrett's warning had come even 1 second sooner, Nora would have leaped away without a moment's hesitation. But it was too late. Are you thinking of showing me the light from that sacred arm, princess? Hare, go ahead. It'll be the last thing you ever do. Sharon's voice had changed. The words were coarse, dripping with a thuggish malice that didn't belong in a child's throat. That cute, high-pitched voice had become a chain, wrapping around Nora's legs and rooting her to the spot. She knew. Sharon understood exactly how the hermit lantern worked, and she had deliberately chosen to stand right in its shadow. That realization sent a wave of icy dread crashing through Nora's demonic core. Nora! Ugh! With a surge of pure willpower, Nora wrenched her feet from the dirt. As she scrambled away, a playful, amused oops from Sharon echoed in her ears. She retreated to Barrett's side, reaching what should have been a safe distance. The sheer volume of terrifying information packed into those few seconds was overwhelming. How do you read this, Nora? Because from where I'm standing, this looks exceptionally bad. Barrett muttered. Bad doesn't cover it. Barrett, she knows we're demons. She knew, and she approached us anyway. You know what that means. Yeah, it means she's confident she can take us both at once. My word, what a terrifying 7-year-old. She's almost like a hero. Nora couldn't find the words to disagree. Barrett, did you see when she got next to me? I saw her. She stepped out from behind a tree and just walked right alongside you as you approached Legion. But I didn't truly register her presence until you did. It has to be some kind of high-level stealth skill it's haunting. Barrett continued. Neither of them had many ways to measure Sharon's actual threat level, but they were long past the point of underestimating her based on her age. The tactical solution was obviously use their numbers. But don't worry. It isn't 2 against 1. It's 3 against 1. Dealing with a child who can't do basic math is always a relief. Barrett deactivated the restriction on Legion. Coordination was impossible, but Sharon was the only thing standing near the monster, naturally. Legion's violent impulses zeroed in on the small girl. Arr! Sharon stood calmly beside the mindless beast, still technically within the influence of the hermit's lantern. Even if she did nothing, Legion's massive arms should have been able to crush Sharon's fragile frame in an instant. They had read Carla's report on the innocent violence technique. They knew it boosted regeneration and made the user more aggressive. Wait. Hold on, Sharon hadn't even drawn her sword. She hadn't activated innocent violence, so why was she acting like this? Dead lost. Sharon didn't move her body, only her eyes. She looked up at Legion, a monster twice her size, and let out a bored, flat command. Gee, the sight left both Barrett and Nora stunned. No way, you've got to be kidding me. Legion, who hadn't flinched after being frozen by a sacred arm or kicked by a demon, was trembling. Argar 1 step, 2 steps. The The giant monster retreated. It was a tactical withdrawal that served no purpose other than escape. One word and she loses her will to fight. Legion, Barrett barked. It was a bitter pill to swallow. They had to admit it. Sharon had terrified a creature that they couldn't break with physical force. Legion had no reason, only instinct. She functioned on the primal law of the jungle predator and prey. Barrett and Nora had needed a magical artifact just to keep her in line. Sharon didn't need anything. Like a wolf growling at a stray dog that had forgotten its place, her get lost was a first and final warning, and Legion's instincts understood that perfectly. Here fear so primal it eclipsed the phantom pains racking her body radiated from the tiny human in front of her. Tears and uncontainable terror took hold. For the newborn Legion, the emotion was too complex to process. Her only answers were tears, a wet patch on the ground, and immediate flight. TCH, useless brat. I'm too young to be dealing with the headaches of parenthood. Barrett cursed. This isn't the time for jokes. What do we do now? They gave up on trying to control the fleeing Legion. Both demons shifted into a full combat stance. Lord Vannies said not to kill her, but were there, don't look at me like that. It's scary. Sharon taunted, her tone mocking and rough. I'm just a bright-eyed first grader. Two grown-ups ganging up on a kid. That's pretty pathetic, don't you think? Sharon stood there, relaxed, baiting them. Nora wasn't as impulsive as Car. She saw right through it. She's trying to provoke us into getting close. Nice try, brat. I'm not falling for it. Nora scoffed at the shallow attempt. Why would they give up the advantage of the hermit's lantern? You've got quite the mouth on you. It's a shame. Since you've seen what's happening here, you didn't think we'd let you go home in one piece, did you? You actually think you're the ones going home? They had to kill her. There was no way to follow Vannis's orders now. Even caught in the restrictive light of the hermit's lantern, Sharon didn't show a flicker of anxiety. Normally, people ask why they can't move, or they beg for their lives, not her. Instead, she radiated the effortless confidence of someone who owned the entire battlefield. There had to be a trick. Well, villain, I've given you plenty of time, but if you would come to me, then I'll come to you. What? The sound that escaped Nora was a pathetic gasp, because in the next heartbeat, Sharon, who should have been frozen solid, was suddenly right in front of her, fist cocked back and ready to strike. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to move forward despite it. For the one who walks with truth finds that no shadow can truly bind them. Chapter 35, a waste of effort. Nora didn't have a spare second to figure out how Sharon was moving freely. Under the influence of the hermit's lantern, she only had time for a desperate defensive maneuver, and even then it was by the skin of her teeth. She braced her entire left arm to intercept Sharon's right fist. As the impact rattled her bones and twisted her expression in pain, Nora's reflexes kicked in, and she managed to boot Sharon backward. Barrett. She screamed her partner's name out of sheer desperation. Barrett understood the subtext instantly. No, the hermit's lantern should be working. This Izzy wasn't making excuses. Because he understood the situation perfectly, Barrett was just as horrified by the phenomenon unfolding before his eyes. The hermit's lantern restricts the movement of anyone who looks at its light. It's a double-edged sword that places an equal physical burden on the user as a price. To cover that weakness, Barrett always operated alongside Nora. Barrett would pin the enemy down, and Nora would hunt. It was a ruthless, almost unfair combination provided it actually landed. If she isn't stopping, then this whole thing is pointless. Nora's internal complaint was valid. Sharon's movements hadn't slowed by so much as a hair. Both demons were forced to confront a terrifying reality. She has the raw strength and agility to move without issue even under the weight of the hermit's lantern. You've got to be kidding me. It was a violation of the natural order, pure, unadulterated stat shaming. If Sharon's strike had landed without the lantern's slight dampening effect, Nora shuddered to think what would have been left of her arm. Be careful, Nora. At this rate, we can't even trust Carla's report. That's pretty harsh. Barrett Sr. Carla Sr. spent over 200 gigs making sure of my stats. I'd say her data is pretty reliable. Higher as bad at tactical feinting as any other brat. Thanks to that outburst, I now know Carla just wasted her dumb time. Even though he was rooted to the spot, Barrett did his best to contribute. He adjusted his cracked glasses, pushed past his fear, and observed Sharon. How much does she know? Based on her tone, she had clearly entered the academy under the assumption that demons were nesting there. A normal human would have no reason to walk into a den of monsters. Tactical feinting. You use tactics when the playing field is level. or when you're punching up against trash like you. I don't need em. Barrett didn't let the provocation get to him. He simply continued to analyze the situation with cold logic. Why would she commit the folly of coming to the academy to obtain sacred arms and assassinate demons? On paper, she's succeeding, but I can't believe a 7-year-old girl is capable of this. How does one explain these monstrous physical specs? Demonic release. Don't you dare let up on the pressure, Barrett. I'm going all out. Wait, where did she actually come from? A sudden chill turned into a sickening realization. Nora, hit her with everything you've got right now. This thing is, if they had a single window for victory. It was this exact moment, while she was mocking them and hadn't yet drawn her sacred arms. It was their first and final chance, but they were too late. Ha-ha! The tiny, malevolent creature let out a sadistic chuckle, sounding intoxicated by her own cruelty. Bingo, Barrett. I guess it's time to check your answers. Ha! Holy armament release. Sharon drew her blade's innocent violence and the Iron Maiden. W.H. I knew it, Nora gasped in horror, while Barrett clicked his tongue in frustration. The Iron Maiden. It was the demonic relic that had belonged to the late Rosen Callisto. Every demon hiding in the academy knew that its current owner was the ghost of the hero who had brutally murdered her. It was an enemy of the stated target that only a greater demon was officially permitted to engage. The orders are to report her presence to a greater demon immediately. But can we even escape? Nora thought, sweat pouring down her face as she stared at the innocent little girl. What do I do? Barrett is stuck using the hermit's lantern, and if he stops, Sharon's freakish physical abilities will just go back to full power. I can't handle her then. Damn it. Demonic boost, faced with a killing intent that felt like it was charring her nerves from the inside out. Nora was the first to snap. Whether you were a holy knight or a demon, a boost was a final trump card. Demons usually avoided using it to maintain their cover, and they certainly never dreamed of using it against a human child. But Nora used it. She was driven to it by pure, unadulterated fear. Nora's weapon, the fool's scimitar, was a basic blade in terms of raw offense. Its true value only appeared when the user sacrificed a massive amount of demonic energy. Ha! Ha! Look at that. You're showing me something fun before you kick the bucket. Right. Nora, I'm so glad you're amused. No, really, I'm impressed. After all, now I get to kill you 13 times. The unique ability of the fool's scimitar was to create 12 clones of the user. Each one was empowered by the consumed energy and, more importantly, could act with its own independent tactical judgment. Barrett, go now, while my clones are distracting her. No. In this situation, the one thing that cannot happen is us failing to tell our kin who Sharon really is. Allow me to play the hero for once. As he spoke, Barrett began funneling every drop of his energy into his own weapon. W.H. What for the first time, the smug, effortless grin vanished from Sharon's face, replaced by genuine shock. She dropped to one knee as an invisible, crushing weight slammed down on her. Barrett, just go. And if I can be so bold as to ask her, favor get Lord Valley's here fast. I don't think I can hold this for long. The sleeves of Barrett's coat were beginning to crumble into fine grey dust. His demonic body was literally disintegrating under the strain of the excessive energy output. Fiend, I'll be back. I promised, stealing herself. Nora turned and sprinted toward the edge of the forest. Hey, I didn't come all this way to watch some trashy melodrama. Nora, get your ass back here. You really gonna let Barrett die, you little tramp? My, still so full of vinegar even while being hacked apart, Barrett remarked. He watched the 12 clones slash at Sharon, who was trapped under his weight. It's like a monster has possessed a 7-year-old, but that ends today. For the peace of our kind, I'll take you to the grave with me. Sharon continued to hurl insults at the retreating Nora, while the clones cut into her. Seeing this, Barrett let out a sigh of relief, even as he felt his life slipping away. It was a cheap price to pay for stopping a monster. As long as Nora reached Lord Vanny's, the greater demons would surely hunt this evil creature down. That's what you're thinking, right, Barrett Sr.? What? The fact that she had read his thoughts, the way her voice had suddenly shifted from a rough, thuggish snarl back to the sweet, innocent tone of a child, and above all else the fact that Sharon was now wearing a wide, beaming smile in the middle of her supposed crisis. All these elements clicked together in Barrett's mind, forming a conclusion he didn't want to believe. You don't mean yep? Exactly that. As if she were showing off a magic trick she'd just learned, Sharon stood up effortlessly and spun in a full circle, swinging the Iron Maiden. The 12 clones that had been slashing at her from point-blank range were vaporized instantly. Impossible, my boost is putting 5 times the normal pressure on you. Huh. Barrett Sr. Can't you do basic math? 0 multiplied by 5 is still 0. If you want to be mad at your own useless, pathetic power. How could this? It had meant nothing from the start. It was a waste of time from the start, from the very beginning. What a waste of effort. Ha! PL, please, of mercy. You want mercy? Fien. Let's see if you can survive this silver light. There is no room for mercy in the face of absolute violence. Sharon thrust her hand forward like a spear, and innocent violence pierced through Barrett's abdomen. Wait, hey, you tried to play the big man for your girl, didn't you? You've got nothing left to live for. Go out with a bang. Release. A blinding silver light erupted, ravaging Barrett's body from the inside out, without leaving so much as a single scrap of flesh behind. The light incinerated every atom of the demon. He who sows the seeds of deception will find no harvest but shadows, for all the schemes of the worldly are like dust before the wind when confronted with the blinding light of truth. Chapter 36. The devil smiled the whole time Nora sprinted. She didn't care about the mud splattering her pristine uniform as she tore through the forest. She pushed her legs to their absolute limit, desperate to deliver the truth Barrett had bought with his life to the rest of her kind. I can't believe Sharon is the ghost of the hero. Damn it. Who would have ever believed that anyone would be fooled by that sweet, innocent face? But underneath that skin sat a monster with a thirst for violence and a sadistic streak a mile wide, specifically designed to torment demons. It wasn't at Rosen's fault she'd been tricked. Anyone would have been. It's not just her combat stats. She has high-level illusion skills to hide her identity, stealth skills that bypass all our detection, and the sheer toughness to wield 2 sacred arms at once without breaking a sweat. And worst of all, this was likely only a fraction of Sharon's true power. Carla's report wasn't just inaccurate, it was a joke, it was worthless. Fortunately, the boost from the hermit's lantern had been enough to pin her down, but that sacred arm drained energy like a sieve. It wouldn't hold forever. Barrett was probably dead. He'd either die from the energy drain, or be slaughtered the moment he let up his guard. He'd known that when he stepped up to be the distraction, the identity of the ghost of the hero. If that information could be bought for the price of a single demon's life, it was a bargain. Barrett's logic was sound, yet Nora couldn't bring herself to accept it. It felt wrong that the phrase Sharon is the ghost of the hero was worth more than her partner's life. If Carla had been more observant, or if Vannies hadn't handed over those sacred arms, or if Alyssa hadn't brought the girl to the academy in the first place, she knew it was pointless to dwell on what-ifs, but she couldn't help it. A thought flickered in her mind that maybe, just maybe, she could have won if she'd fought alongside Barrett while Sharon was pinned. No, I have to keep moving. She didn't slow down. Her partner had valued this single piece of intel more than his own heart, and she wouldn't let that sacrifice go to waste. This wasn't a retreat. It was a desperate courier mission. To kill that monster, she had to get this news to a greater demon, for Barrett, who was likely burning away his very soul at this moment to hold the line. Nora forced her aching legs forward. I have to get this back to them for Roseanne, for the Fallen, and for Barrett. She would trade her own life if she had to, as long as the greater demons knew the truth. And the whole time, the devil sat back and laughed at her struggle. The edge of the forest was close. Just a little further and she'd be back on the battlefield. Sunlight began to pour through the thinning trees, illuminating the path just a few steps ahead. I don't feel her behind me. Maybe she isn't planning on coming back to the academy. Maybe Sharon realized she couldn't catch up and gave up. That would be perfect. She'd never have to see that girl again unless it was to look down at her corpse after the greater demons were through with her, in that one heartbeat of relief. The devil struck. What her legs, which had been pumping with frantic energy, suddenly turned to lead. She tried to take another step, but her feet were pinned to the forest floor as if they'd been nailed down. Nora knew this feeling. There was only one thing it could be. In her field of vision, a pale, ghostly blue flame flickered. It was the light of a guaranteed first strike, the very same light Barrett had used, the hermit's lantern, the weapon that placed an equal burden on the target and the wielder. But the light wasn't coming from behind her. It was right in front of her, approaching slowly. Gosh, you're slow, Nora Senior. I've been waiting forever. The devil Sharon Burner hadn't been chasing her at all. She had watched Nora run herself ragged from the shadows, mocking her every step, and had simply circled round to wait at the finish line. She could have ended it whenever she wanted, so why wait until now? Did you think you were safe? Did you really think you'd get away? Or were you having some big, heroic moment, thinking about how you'd tell your friends and get revenge for your partner. Honestly, I really want to know, how does it feel to run away and leave your friend to die? The blue light of the lantern stayed lit as Sharon strolled toward her. She had waited by the exit just to laugh in Nora's face and prove that every ounce of her struggle had been utterly meaningless. The weight on her body was crushing. She couldn't even wiggle a finger. Sharon should have been feeling the exact same pressure, and yet she walked with a relaxed, effortless grace. Worse than the physical weight was the sight of the hermit's lantern in Sharon's hand. That alone was enough to shatter Nora's spirit. Ahaha! There's no need to be scared. You look like a pig in a slaughterhouse. Come on, take a deep breath. It's a shame about Barrett Sr., but it's his own fault for getting in my way. You aren't going to get in my way. Are you, Nora Sr.? I won't. I promise. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I guess that depends on you. You let your clones hack away at me quite a bit. Do you really think a simple sorry is going to fix that? I'll do anything. Anything you want. Just please, let me live on. You aren't lying, are you? And no, of course not. Yay. Anything. You'll do anything. Sharon beamed with pure, childlike joy, looking like a kid who'd just been told she could pick out any toy in the store. She skipped closer to Nora. Okay then, how about you give me that medicine you're carrying, Nora Sr.? Medicine. In this situation, there was only one thing Nora had that could be called medicine. Give that to this devil. It was insanity. And medicine. I don't have anything like that, Do you really think playing word games is going to save you? It's Soma, sweetheart, Soma. You just cut your own lifeline, didn't you? I'm just kidding, Nora Sr. You really don't have it. I don't. She knew about the Soma. Just how long had Sharon been watching them? What about that hidden pocket on the inside of your jacket? Right by your ribs. Are you telling me that syringe and those chemicals have nothing to do with Soma? No, she knows everything. Without waiting for an answer, Sharon reached her small hand into the secret pocket. Nora felt a wave of nausea and terror, as if a venomous snake were slithering under her clothes. DCH, only dose. Cheapskate. So, you still want to tell me it's not Soma? Please, Sharon, you can't play around with that stuff. It's dangerous. It was fine to use it on 22 humans, though, wasn't it? Haha, a bit late for a conscience. Didn't you say it's too risky to use on demons? The memory of their conversation in the Academy's detention room came rushing back. You really should stop talking so loud when you're in there, Nora Sr. She had been there. The devil had been there all along. The realization finally hit her. On that day, Sharon had been sitting right next to Carla, wearing that same unsettling smile, listening to every single word they said. Ta-ta! These are the materials that are going to be your new body. Nora Sr. They might be small, but they're still technically magical beasts. Right, don't worry though. They're all nice and healthy. I'm sure they'll help you grow big and strong. Sharon reached behind a tree and dragged out a heavy basket, placing it right in front of the paralyzed Nora. Inside, a horrific mass of crawling, writhing insects seethed. No, it was impossible. This had to be a joke. But this was Nora's fate. No, please, Sharon, have mercy. No, I don't want to be a bug. Somebody help me. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Happy birthday, Nora. I'll head home once I've seen your ugly new body for myself. Be sure to say hi to the other demons for me. With those words, the devil plunged the needle deep into Nora's neck. The trap that one sets for the innocent often becomes their own snare. For the heart that finds joy in the suffering of others will eventually taste the bitterness of its own cruelty. Chapter 37 of The Grotesque Awakening. I had completely underestimated Lena Sandrian. Her combat prowess was head and shoulders above even the veteran Holy Knights, and she wielded her sacred arm with terrifying, effortless precision. We had been hoping to use the chaos of this chimera ambush to finally get rid of her ideally, by having her accidentally fall in battle, but she hadn't given us a single opening. Carla Boyd, your movements are sluggish, Lena said, her voice steady despite the carnage. If you're not feeling up to it, please fall back. I don't want you getting hurt. To be lectured by our target like a child was a bitter pill to swallow. Boyd Argent, the other demon assigned to help me finish Lena, let out a weary, frustrated sigh. He leaned on his demonic arm, using it like a cane as he watched her work. She doesn't even know we're trying to kill her, Boyd muttered, scratching his dark cheek. She's protecting her own assassins while wiping out chimeras without taking a single scratch. Honestly, Carla, do you really think we have what it takes to handle this? I wasn't sure if he was impressed or just ready to give up. He looked like he was about to throw in the towel. Don't say it out loud, I hissed. Her growth rate is just unnatural. I've never seen a power level jump this high in such a short amount of time. If I had to guess, she's probably siphoning off the potential of her partner. What was her name? Monica. Whatever, Boyd said with a shrug. Poor girl. Standing next to Lena probably feels like being a plant in the shade of a giant oak. No wonder she's falling behind. Monica, yes, I replied. And because she's so weak, we're the ones who have to struggle with this monster. If humans have one advantage over demons, it's their growth rate. Humans are fragile things. They don't have our innate magic or our raw vitality, which is why we usually don't fear them. But many demons have lost their lives because they ignored that one variable. Humans are like weeds. If you look away for even a second, they've shot up 3 inches. When they're small, you can pluck them easily, but once they take root, they become impossible to tear out. Lena had grown far beyond anything we could manage on our own. True enough, Boyd said, but don't overthink it. You've got enough on your plate playing nanny to these students. If you try to match Lord Vanny's workload, you'll burn out before the war even starts. It's our job to make sure Lord Vanny's doesn't have to lift a finger. I snapped, but it's clear we aren't going to kill Lena on a standard mission anymore. She's only going to get stronger from here. She was a one-woman army. A sacred arm, the blade of just retribution, was a terrifying weapon, its power scaled based on the sins of the opponent and the user's own righteous deeds. Apparently, if the user had fewer sin points than the target, they could kill them without any karmic penalty at all. It manifested as a massive, intimidating greatsword that Lena swung like it was made of balsa wood, cleaving through anything that dared to get close. Frankly, I didn't want to face her head-on. Fighting someone who could literally weigh your soul in the middle of a duel was insane, and Lena herself was disgustingly righteous. Looking at the way that blade sliced through meat, I knew she wasn't someone you challenged unless you were prepared to die. You think she bullies that Sharon kid when no one's looking? Boyd asked. Doubtful, I replied. She's even nice to Monica, and that girl is a lost cause. Maybe she was just stacking good deed points by helping the underachievers. If so, it was working, and I hated it. Is everyone all right? Any injuries? Lena asked, approaching us. We're fine thanks to you, I muttered. Yeah, not a scratch. Thanks, Lena, Boyd added. 8 of them. Lena hadn't just covered the retreat of the regular knights. She had systematically exterminated every single chimera in the vicinity. She wasn't even out of breath as she checked on us. Maybe I should tell Barrett and Nora to make the next batch of monsters stronger, I thought. They had mentioned something about using humans as the base today. Honestly, it was probably a waste of time. Those two were obsessed with biological fusion, even though it was originally just a side project meant to find a cure for damaged demon cores. I wished my colleagues were a bit more focused on Lord Vanny's actual orders. Wait, Lena's eyes widened. Colour, Boyd. Move. She was the first to sense the anomaly. A massive shadow fell over us as a gargantuan creature descended from the sky. It had to be at least 30 feet long. What is that? A giant beetle. Boyd yelled. It wasn't quite right. The silhouette was definitely beetle-like, but it was a horrific mosaic of different insect parts. Its abdomen was long and segmented like a caterpillar's, ending in a stinger that dripped with honey-coloured venom. It had 8 legs including a set of powerful, locust-like hind legs instead of the usual 6. And then there was the horn, a jagged, obsidian spire that rose from its head like a crown. Boyd, look at the horn, I whispered, my voice trembling. I see it. Don't say a word. If Lena finds out hanging from the horn was something that looked like a discarded cocoon or a shed skin. But it wasn't an insect's shell. I felt like I was going to throw up. Beside me, Boyd was covering his mouth, his face pale. What have you done? Nora the cocoon was the upper half of Nora's human skin. Having seen the effects of the fusion agent Soma before, I could easily piece together what had happened to her. If the subject's magical power is high, the transformation is massive. The more base materials used, the more the subject suffers from phantom pains. And if the biological needs of the materials conflict with the host, they can't even sustain themselves. She knew the risks. Why would she fuse herself with a swarm of insects? I couldn't understand the why, but the what was standing right in front of me. Whatever had once been Nora was now a mindless, predatory god of the forest. Stay back, you two, Lena warned, raising the blade of just retribution. I don't think I can protect you from this one. The beetle thing let out a sound that was not a roar, but a high-frequency vibration that rattled my very teeth as the creature lurched forward, The tattered remains of Nora finally slip from the horn, falling to the dirt and crumbling into grey ash. Embedded in the centre of the monster's horn was a brilliant, blood-red stone Nora's demon core staring down at us like a hateful, unblinking eye. Every soul tastes the consequences of its own handiwork, for the outer form eventually reflects the inner state. When one trades their humanity for power, they find themselves trapped in a cage of their own making, where the only thing left is the echo of what they used to be. Chapter 38. A hell for the living. A hell for the dead. Lena's instincts were lethal. The moment she identified the insectoid nightmare that had once been Nora as a threat, she didn't hesitate. She levelled the blade of just retribution and charged. What do we even do? I thought, my mind racing. Try to save her. Impossible. There was no magic to reverse a fusion once the soma had taken hold. Boyd stood beside me, his face twisted as if he'd swallowed a mouthful of needles, clearly paralysed by the same indecision. She's attacking us. She's completely lost her mind. I looked at the twitching monster. Please tell me Barrett isn't a bug somewhere too. Dark theories clawed at my mind. I didn't care about the rest of their team, but Barrett's status was a major concern. Had the humans they used as base materials turned out to be more powerful than they imagine? Even so, I couldn't see Nora injecting herself with soma just to survive a scrap, especially not using insects as a catalyst, unless someone took the soma from her and forced the injection. A sudden, chilling sensation washed over me, like a predator watching from the moonless shadows. If the ghost of the hero, the same one who murdered Rosen, had done this to Nora, then we were next on the list. Don't just stand there, Carla. I know, the plan to kill Lena in a tragic accident was officially dead. Against a mindless, rampaging Nora, Lena's raw power was our only lifeline. But what were we supposed to do with the monster? Lord Vannies loathed losing subordinates. We should have been trying to save her, but we lacked the means. Could we just leave her? No, we didn't give a damn about the human city, but we couldn't let the Galileo Academy of Magic be levelled. Besides, I couldn't just abandon Lena and run. It was not because I cared about her, it was because if she killed Nora, we'd lose our only lead on the ghost. We have to fight. If I hesitated any longer, Lena would start getting suspicious. Are you ready for this? Lena shouted over the roar of the wind. As ready as I'll ever be. I yelled back. What about you, Boyd? I hate everything about this. But it's not like we have a choice. We were about to kill one of our own. Neither Boyd nor I had been given the luxury of time to process that. Whether we moved forward or stayed still, it was hell either way. We just had to pick the version that burned a little less. I promised myself I'd wash away the stain of this betrayal by eventually slaughtering the ghost of the hero. I'm sorry, Nora. To kill the ghost, I have to kill you. I followed Lena's lead, diving into Nora's attack range. Instantly, a wave of cold, predatory malice locked onto me and Boyd. Colour, Boyd, be careful. She's incredibly thick-skinned and faster than she looks. Lena's brief report, shouted over the clash of steel, made me click my tongue in frustration. If even the blade of just retribution found her thick-skinned, then my silent sadism technique wouldn't even leave a scratch on that chitin. I'll strip that armor off, Boyd shouted, raising his staff. Carla, stay on your feet and keep her eyes on you. Lena, I'm leaving a finishing blow to you. It's our best shot. I agreed. Understood. I've got your back with magic. Lena cried out. Carla, it's dangerous, so please don't die. I was almost impressed by how quickly Lena agreed to deliver the killing blow to someone she thought was a classmate. I had been wrong. I'd assumed the hardest part would be the emotional weight of killing Nora. I was dead wrong. The hardest part is that she might actually kill us first. Nora's original mana pool had always been impressive. The Sona transformation scales with the host's power, and it showed. She had always been talented enough to wield the mana-hungry fool's scimitar. In terms of raw capacity, she was second only to Barrett. Now, fused with an insectoid beast, she was a juggernaut. Her armor was dense and layered. For such a bloated, heavy-looking thing, her movements were terrifyingly fluid. The jagged horn on her head and the stinger on her tail were clearly coated in something lethal. Lena dodged with microscopic movements, weaving through the strikes, while I relied on my agility to dance around the edges. I had to stay close enough to keep the monster's aggro on me so Boyd wouldn't get squashed. If I slipped up for even a second, the balance would shatter. This was a sprint, not a marathon. We had to end this fast, or Nora would tear us apart. Fireball, Boyd's weapon, the staff of the magician, was a support-type demonic relic. It didn't have much offensive power on its own, but it acted as a massive amplifier for the owner's elemental spells. A barrage of roaring flames slammed into Nora. It did something. The monster shrieked, but it wasn't a death blow. Her outer shell had high physical resistance, and the flesh beneath seemed to have high magical resistance. The strategy stayed the same. Boyd had to melt the armor with magic so Lena could strike the vitals, and I had to create that opening with my own 2 feet. Easier said than done. Then the monster played its ace. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Nora's abdomen pulsed and swelled. I heard the despair in Boyd's voice clear as a bell. The delicate balance we had maintained through Lena's swordplay, Boyd's magic, and my distractions was about to be obliterated. Damn it. Is it a boy or a girl? Make up your mind. I cursed. An ovipositor. This wasn't just a transformation. It was an infestation. The eggs she laid cracked open almost instantly, and a swarm of children burst forth to defend their mother. They were soldiers. Each was the size of a human infant, but they looked like centipedes with tattered, leathery wings. They took to the air, buzzing toward us in a thick, suffocating cloud. Carla! Lena's voice cut through the drone of 1,000 wings. She wants me to deal with these runts. Don't ask for the impossible. I'm busy enough just staying alive over here. No, look out! I realized too late. Nora always loved the tactic where Barrett would pin someone down with the hermit's lantern so she could finish them off. Now, she was using her swarm to do the pinning. I slid and pivoted, narrowly avoiding a strike from the massive stinger because I'd stopped moving for a split second to dodge. I had become the primary target, which meant the next person to stop moving would be Boyd. My scream and the attack happened almost simultaneously. I was a heartbeat too late. Casting high-level magic requires standing still. That's why I was supposed to be the distraction. As if punishing me for my failure, Nora whipped her tail round and fired the stinger she'd missed me with straight at Boyd. Whoa, that was way too close. Boyd gasped, stumbling back. I won't get a second chance at that. Ha ha ha. It's getting so bad I might just start laughing. This isn't a joke. Do you realize how much trouble we're in? He'd barely dodged it. The needle had only grazed the sleeve of his left arm. If either of us died here, Lena would see our true forms upon our death. If it came to that, we'd be better off just retreating. I know. One shot. If this doesn't stop her, grab me and run. Don't you dare talk about failing. Lena, aim for the red stone in the horn. The red stone got it. The plan was simple, or rather, it was the only thing we had left. Boyd would use a demonic boost to supercharge his magic and melt the armor. Then Lena would shatter the demon core in the horn. I just had to provide the opening, even if it cost me my life. Demonic boost, fireball. A series of massive, roaring suns erupted from Boyd's staff, liquefying Nora's heavy chitin. At the same time, I cleared a path. I kicked and tore through the winged centipedes, killing as many as I could to give Lena a clear run. Holy ornament release. Lena followed suit, triggering the boost on the blade of just retribution. The sword was instantly bathed in a blinding golden radiance. This was it. Lena's boost was her trump card. If she didn't finish it now, we'd have 2 exhausted teammates and 1 very angry monster. But Lena Sandria never missed. This ends now. She lunged, her feet barely touching the ground before she took flight. Her first strike shattered the horn and the red stone within, and her second strike buried the golden blade deep into the monster's exposed chest. A silent, vibrating shriek of agony ripped through the air. Everyone present knew it was the end. Nora was dead. Lena, I'm okay. My skill level went up, so I know. The insect is dead. Lena looked grim. She had likely realized the truth the moment she touched the fallen weapon in the fool's scimitar. Picking up a sacred arm gives you a glimpse into its history. She knew her classmate was gone. There was no joy in victory, only the hollow weight of having killed a friend, the pity for the grotesque way she died, and a burning, cold rage toward the ghost of the hero. I'm so sorry, Nora, I whispered it so Lena wouldn't hear. Nora had been a brat, and she'd constantly got on my nerves. But you're one of us. She was one of Lord Vanis's people. I never wanted her to end up like this. We had killed her. I couldn't hide behind the excuse that Lena dealt the final blow. I finally understood how Lord Vanis felt when his subordinates were taken from him. This was too much. I hate to ruin the moment while you're mourning the big guy. Boyd said, his voice trembling and his face pale. But I don't think that Chimera is quite finished yet. I looked up, the grief instantly replaced by a fresh wave of horror. Inside the cooling carcass of what had been Nora, something was still squirming. Hell wasn't done with us just yet. The path of vengeance is a fire that consumes both the hunter and the prey. for when we lose ourselves to the darkness of the world, we find that even our victories are stained with the tears of what we have lost. Chapter 39. The coward's price. Something was struggling to crawl out of Nora's mangled remains. Even with her demon core shattered and taking a direct hit from Lena, she was still moving. "Lena, take Boyd and get out of here," I ordered. "You've done more than enough for a student. Let the other teams handle the cleanup and take the credit." Boyd was useless now, suffering from the backlash of his demonic boost. Lena couldn't have much gas left in the tank either. "What about you, Carla? Someone needs to play the rearguard, don't they? I'm the only one who didn't use a boost, and I'm fast. Look, I'm just trying to sound tough, but I won't be able to hold out forever. Just go." I couldn't lose Boyd right after Nora. More importantly, I had to find a clue. I needed to scavenge through every scrap of meat and every drop of blood for any hint of the ghost of the hero. I couldn't let Lena see me picking through the carcass of our classmate. Boyd seemed to catch my drift and immediately began to withdraw. Lena wasn't stupid enough to argue in the middle of a disaster like this. Once I was sure they were out of sight, I let out a long, shaky breath. The reality sitting in front of me was almost too much to stomach. I had to finish off this pile of twitching meat, dig through the remains of a friend, and erase anything that linked her to our kind. It was a total violation of Nora's dignity, but if I wanted her death to mean anything, if I wanted to find the ghost who was currently sharpening his claws and laughing at us from the shadows, I had to climb over her corpse. With my silent sadism technique active, I crept toward the remains. Since Nora was the base of the creature, her body was already starting to turn to ash now that the core was gone. But in the center of that mess, a lump of flesh was squirming. Was it a child? No, it was Nora. It wasn't exactly her. She had antennae where her horns should have been. Her arms had become insectoid forelics, and her skin was a patchwork of soft demon flesh and hard, chitinous plates. Her eyes were compound, and her mouth had become the horizontal, slapping mandibles of a hornet. And yet, her build, her hair color, and the tiny fragments of her face that remained were unmistakably her. Carla, the cheerful, energetic voice was gone. It was just a raspy, dying wheeze, but it was definitely Nora. Nora, damn it. How much more did this ghost want to mock us? He had clearly anticipated that we wouldn't be able to just walk away and leave her. Stuck right through the center of Nora's crawling, pathetic body was the sword of the sun. It must have been embedded in the abdomen of that giant beetle the whole time, hidden from view. A failsafe. He'd turned Nora into a monster, but he'd made sure that if she became a nuisance to his plans, he could end her in an instant. There was no saving her. The sword of the sun had a specific property. It burned the mana of anyone it cut. With that blade through her chest, she was essentially a living bomb with the fuse already lit. "Nora, hang on. I'm going to help you. Just tell me who did this to you." I knew it was a lie. She probably knew it too, but the only thing that mattered was the name. If I didn't get that name, her death was for nothing. Hero the hero. Nora used the last of her strength to utter the title that every demon feared. So it really was the ghost of the hero. What did he look like? Anything. Give me a clue. Shasharag. As if she'd just spotted a nightmare, Nora pointed her two remaining claws behind me and shrieked. Someone was standing at my back. A wave of pure, suffocating malice flooded the clearing. I didn't even need to turn around to know. My instincts screamed at me if I wanted to live. I couldn't look back. "Can't even keep your guard up for a second, can you?" A voice rasped. "You're like one of those pests that sprays a foul stench the moment you squash it." "Oh wait, you are a buck. I gave you the honor of being killed by your own friends. But if you wanted to be killed by me that badly, you should have just said so. I would have made it hurt a lot more before I finished the job." The voice was impossible to pin down. Man, woman, old, young. It shifted constantly. An acting skill. But the cruelty and the bone-chilling bloodlust weren't hidden. If anything, they were being flaunted. "Show yourself, you coward." I barked. "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Based on that little chat you were having with the bar, I thought you wanted to see me. It's easy. All you have to do is turn around." I was paralyzed. Not just Nora, but I was within his reach, too. If I turned around, I was dead. If I'm a coward, then you're a yellow-bellied chicken. Look at Nora. She's using every last scrap of her mana just to keep a human shape so she can talk to you, and you can't even find the guts to look me in the eye. The ghost snapped his fingers. On that cue, the sword of the sun flared to life, incinerating the last of Nora's mana from the inside out. Jayarg, Kala. Nora screamed my name as she burned. It was a sound that would haunt my dreams forever, and yet I did nothing. Ha ha ha. Look at that. Your precious lead is thrown up in smoke. Demons smell terrible when they burn, don't they? So, you just gonna stand there. I couldn't move, I couldn't put out the fire, and I couldn't turn around. Don't be so tense. You're making me look like a bully. Tell you what, consider this a reward for babysitting Sharon Burner for me. I'll let you go, just this once. Make sure you enjoy being alive. Okay, I'll save the slow, painful death for next time. With that final, merciless promise, the heavy pressure of his killing intent vanished. You bastard. I spun around, fueled by a sudden burst of rage, but he was already gone. With the flaming remains of Nora at my back, my knees finally gave out. I felt completely hollow, and death, our one chance to lead everything, had been for nothing. Damn it, damn it, damn it all. I sat there in the dirt, a coward who had failed at everything. True fear is not the presence of danger, but the absence of hope in the face of one's own weakness. For the one who abandons a friend to save themselves finds the life they preserved is but a hollow shell, haunted by the silence of the heart. Chapter 40. The thug builds an alibi. I couldn't help but hum a little tune. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, fourth movement, the Ode to Joy. Now that 2 parasitic insects had been exterminated, I'm sure people all over the world were celebrating. As a humble representative of the entire human race, I figured I'd express that joy in my own small way. I was currently sprawled out on Monica's bed, making a mess as I helped myself to the fruit and sweets she'd received as get-well gifts. Food always tastes better right after you've slaughtered a couple of demons. You know, it's really creepy when you're in a good mood, Monica muttered. That's mean, big sister Monica. Shouldn't everyone be happy to see such a cute little girl in high spirits? In your dreams. So, I'm assuming that injury isn't unrelated to what happened out there. Monica, who was naturally unscathed after the emergency deployment, had been allowed to return home early. The fact that she'd been released so easily despite her 2 teammates being missing was likely thanks to the advice I'd given her. Obviously, this leg is my alibi. A 7-year-old with a broken leg couldn't possibly have made it all the way out to that forest, right? Wait, so for the sake of an alibi, you broke your own leg, healed it yourself so you could go fight, and then broke it again after you got back. That's about the size of it. Consider this injury the final achievement of those 2 pieces of trash. I'm sure they're bragging about it in the afterlife. I can see it now. We teamed up and managed to break one of the heroes' legs. That ought to get them a warm welcome from Rosen and the rest of the bottom-tier demons in hell. Of course, thanks to my sensitivity skill, I don't feel a thing, and I could fix it in seconds with my maxed-out natural healing. But it would be rude to rain on a dead man's parade, wouldn't it? That still doesn't explain why you're getting crumbs all over my bed. Monica snapped. Are you stupid? First of all, my bed is the top bunk. You expect me to climb up there with this leg? Second, since someone failed to keep Lena's mental state stable, I'm probably going to be her emotional support pillow for the foreseeable future. And third, your bed was already dirty, so don't sweat it. See? Makes perfect sense. Point number 3, don't say such slanderous things. My bed is perfectly clean. I'd love to hear you say that in front of Lena, who irons her sheets every morning. Don't compare me to a little paragon of perfection, and if that's the case, just heal your leg already. That's the point. Because of your emergency, all the school doctors were out on the battlefield. If I suddenly turned up healed without any recovery magic, I'd basically be announcing I'm a high-threat entity. I've put out a bluff that innocent violence is a sacred arm specialized for self-healing, but school rules strictly forbid using divine relics on campus without permission. If I could use it, the alibi wouldn't hold up. Of course, that only works if the demons believe I'm a child who actually follows the rules. If some spiteful pest starts digging and realizes I was wandering around the day well, I'll have a one-way ticket to a very special destination waiting for them. I think we'll all know where that leads. I see. So based on how you're talking, I take it you finished off Barrett and Nora. Nah, I left Nora to Lena. That full scimitar wasn't really my style anyway. Huh. Surprising. Among the Arcana weapons, that one is actually pretty useful. I didn't have a problem with the stats of the full scimitar, but the autonomous behavior was a deal-breaker. My clones would just charge in and do all the work with my pretty body specs, and then where's the fun for me? Arcana weapons. According to Monica, in the current timeline, the second arc of the original story, the sacred arms modelled after the major arcana of the tarot were known as Arcana weapons. A major arcana consists of 22 cards. I won't bore you with the details, but they are the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Chariot, Justice, the Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Strength, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, a Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the 22. That's a lot of work. These weapons were a hidden element in a second arc. Apparently, if you equipped Lena and her party with all of them, you got some kind of special bonus, but since some required multiple playthroughs to obtain, you weren't supposed to get them all on your first run, so between me and Lena, we've got the Fool, Justice, the Hermit, the Moon, and the Sun. That's 5. Not sure if that's a lot or a little. You're really planning on collecting them all, aren't you, duh? What? Are you the type of person who ignores the stamp rally at a carnival because it's too much work? How boring. The ink for those stamps is way too dangerous. Ha ha ha. They're just trash lives anyway. Might as well put them to good use for the world, for the people, and most importantly, for me. Right. Once I start thinking about completionist goals, the collector in me gets an itch. I'm going to have to rework my pest control schedule from scratch. Man, this is getting fun. I've just given myself another perfectly good excuse to kill things. What happened to your moral compass? Good grief. I'm not the type to brag about my good deeds, but still, excuse me, I think I'm being pretty virtuous, considering I just saved someone from a human experimentation lab. I really think I deserve a pat on the back for saving the person Barrett and Nora were using as a toy. Sure, I didn't intend to save her at first, I just glared at her because she was in my way, but the end result was her survival. That's a textbook good deed. My karma must be tanking again. Wait, what? You don't mean Legion, do you? Who knows? Little Sharon doesn't understand. Don't play dumb with me. Seriously. That could be incredibly dangerous. Not my problem. Besides, Legion is 100% human. Killing her would go against my principles. Whether she goes on a killing spree or gets eaten by demons is none of my business. Seriously. Depending on how things go, this could be a disaster. You need to... Shut up. Be quiet. Oof. She was starting to get annoying. So I gave her a light jab to the solar plexus. For someone who killed 19 chimeras, her physical defense is pathetic still, Legion. Ha. A homunculus created from 22 human beings. I suppose I'll keep it in the back of my mind. Not that it'll ever amount to much. A kind act is never truly lost, even if the intention was hidden behind a mask of indifference, for the value of a deed lies in the relief it brings to the suffering, not in the praise it earns for the doer. Chapter 41 Malice and Resolve. So this is what's left of Nora. Vanny stood over the remains, his voice barely a whisper. What lay before him was a nightmare of Ash, the charred husk of a girl who had been twisted into an insectoid freak, and then systematically incinerated by the Sword of the Sun. Despite having her demon core shattered, Nora had somehow kept a human shape. She looked like a pitch-black sculpture, frozen in a final, agonizing spasm. Her arms were reached out as if she were desperately begging anyone to save her in those final seconds. When I found her, she'd already been fused with those insects. Carla said, her voice trembling as she spoke to Vanny's back. I was with Lena, and there was no way to save her without blowing my cover. After the fight, the ghost of the hero showed up and he burned her. I'm so sorry. This was my fault. She sounded small, crushed by the weight of her failure. Vanny's had warned her before that he wouldn't tolerate another mistake, and by any standard, this was a disaster, but it was more than just a tactical loss. Vanny's hated seeing his own people die, and Carla knew it. She could have offered a dozen excuses, but she didn't. She just stood there, drowning in a sea of helplessness. She had watched her friend burn and hadn't been able to lift a finger. The shame was suffocating. But the fear was worse. That primal, soul-deep terror she'd felt in the presence of the ghost had shattered her pride. It was as if he'd reached inside her and slowly scraped away at her own demon core while she was still alive. To put it plainly, Carla was a wreck, but to her surprise, Vanny's didn't snap. No, you made the right call, he said calmly. If the only ones we lost to the ghost were Barrett and Nora, the damage is manageable. The fact that you're even standing here is a miracle. To Vanny's, who knew exactly how the heroes of old used to fight, Carla's survival was nothing short of a gift. But Barrett, we haven't found him yet. Carla whispered, he's missing. Don't get your hopes up, Vanny's replied, his voice flat. If Nora ended up like this, he's either dead or turned into another one of those things. It's safe to assume the worst. Even as he spoke about his fallen subordinates, Vanny's face remained a mask. His hat was pulled low, shadowing his eyes, and his tone was as steady as a heartbeat. Look, Barrett was officially a student knight. I can come up with plenty of reasons to launch a search party. Don't worry. I'll make sure my people are laid to rest properly. One way or another." He spent a few minutes meticulously checking the remains for any trace of the ghost, but found nothing. Satisfied, or perhaps just resigned, he began to carefully move what was left of Nora into a transport box. "Sir, let me help with the search," Carla started. "No, Carla, I need you to stay on Sharon Burner." Vannies looked at her then, his gaze sharp. "Think about it. That comment the ghost made to you thanking you for babysitting her, that's all the proof we need." My hunch was right. Sharon was the key. She might not know a thing about the ghost, but he clearly cared about her. That made Sharon Burner the single most important person in the world to the demon race. She was the one thin thread connecting them to their enemy. Vannies wasn't going to eclaw the search for Barrett's remains, but Carla's priority had to be the girl. She had to guard her, watch her, and wait. "I'll understand," Carla said. "But sir, if she's his weakness, shouldn't we use her? We could use Sharon as bait to lure him out." "Absolutely not," Vannies countered immediately. "If she were big over libel, he wouldn't have told Adumilaba. Either he's playing us, or he's so confident in his power that he doesn't care if we know. If it were a slip of the tongue, you'd be dead right now." He went back to gathering the ash, his mind racing. Why was Sharon at the Galileo Academy of Magic? Why tell Carla? None of it made sense. He could think of 5 different answers, but his gut told him they were all wrong. It felt like an invisible devil was watching from the wings, waiting for him to write the wrong answer into the ledger. I hate to admit it, but he's holding all the cards. We don't have enough information to make a move. For now, tell the others. No one goes out alone. Everyone watches Sharon Burner. The ghost probably can't get inside the school, but we have to assume he's already inside the capital. If you see him, do not engage. Report to me or Natalie immediately. Got it. Understood. And don't beat yourself up over Barrett and Nora. Vannies added softly. Treat it as a tragedy and move on. If you're too busy mourning to stay sharp, you'll be the next one in a box. But sir, it's fine. If you need someone to blame, blame me. This was my mistake. I underestimated the ghost's reach and let those two go off on their own. So just stay alive. As long as you're breathing, we still have a chance to hit back. It was the advice of a survivor. Vannies knew exactly what was going on in Carla's head. He'd been there before. He knew that as long as they lived, there would be a moment for revenge. It wasn't just a pep talk, it was a promise born from the time he'd managed to land a blow against the original Heroes Party. "Yes, sir, I will." Good. He watched Carla's back as she disappeared into the night, heading back toward the school. Only when she was gone did he finally let out a long, ragged breath. "I'm sorry, Nora. It must have been hell for you. It's going to take some time before your soul can find peace, but just wait. I promise I'll be the one to heal the wounds on your spirit." His words were quiet, but they burned with a terrifying intensity. "A minor loss. Don't make me laugh." He clenched his jaw so hard he felt his teeth groan under the pressure. Barrett and Nora were troublemakers, sure, but they were his people. They were brilliant, and they were gone. He took them from me. He took my family. A sudden, violent storm of mana erupted from Vannies, swelling around him in a vortex of black and crimson. His raw, unbridled malice slammed into the earth, cracking the ground beneath his feet. As a greater demon, his power was a literal weapon of mass destruction. Even knowing that a tantrum was pointless, he couldn't hold it back. If the ghost had appeared right then, Vannies would have torn the world apart to kill him. But no miracle occurred. The ghost was too smart to make a move like that. "Alyssa, I don't think I can keep my promise," Vannies whispered to the woman who wasn't there. "I told you I just put a hole in him, but I don't think I have that kind of patience anymore." He stared into the darkness, his eyes glowing with a faint, ghostly light. "I am going to kill you." Justice is not found in the heat of a vengeful heart, but in the patience of a soul that seeks to mend what has been broken. For while anger may shatter the earth, it is only through steady resolve that we find the strength to truly overcome the shadows. Chapter 42, a celebration. In the dark, the damage from the Chimera ambush was nothing short of a catastrophe. 1 student dead, 1 missing, and a list of injuries longer than my arm. Of course, the general student body had no idea that the dead girl and the missing boy were actually demons in disguise, but that didn't change the mood. To put it plainly, the atmosphere at the Galileo Academy of Magic was absolutely miserable. I hadn't even had a proper welcome to the school party yet, and some stupid idiots had to go and die and ruin the vibe. You can probably imagine how a celebration cake tastes in a room full of gloom and doom. I honestly don't know how you can sit there and eat cake in a room like this, a voice muttered. I looked up from my modest little snack to see the intruder. It was Carla Lennon, the lovely but utterly foolish demon pretending to be a human student while hunting for the ghost of the hero. "Oh, hey there, Carla Senior. You want some? It's delicious," I said through a mouthful of frosting. "Wait, is managing my diet part of your job now? Man, you seniors really have it rough." "I don't care about your diet, and I don't care if you eat one whole cake for your 3 o'clock snack," she snapped. "But surely you've heard, Nora is dead and Barrett is missing. Even if you didn't know them, a lot of people were hurt out there. How can you just eat cake?" "Ah, I see where this is going." She was upset that I was being insensitive to the death of her fellow demons. "It's not a crime to eat cake just because people died, is it?" I asked, setting my fork down. "I mean, obviously, and sad about Nora Senior. It's a tragedy, but we can't let a celebration be ignored just because things got a little messy, right? There's an old saying about joy and sorrow being 2 strands of the same rope. People die, it's sad, but life doesn't stop just because someone kicked the bucket. Being a holy knight is a tough gig. If you spend all your time crying, your fists get slow, and then even more people end up as demon snacks. There is absolutely nothing to celebrate right now." Carla hissed. "Is that so? I mean, I still haven't had my enrollment party, and besides I heard Lena Senior managed to shatter a demon core, even if it was just a monster. A win is a win. I figured I should start getting the party favors ready, you know." I stabbed a bright red strawberry on top of the cake with my fork. I usually save the best for last, but I was feeling particularly great today. "How do you know about that?" she gasped. "Lena and I are roommates. Remember, she mentioned something about a weird buck monster having a core, and now she's carrying Nora Senior's sacred arm. It's just casual girl talk. Why? Aren't you planning on throwing a victory party for Lena?" I knew she couldn't. How do you throw a party for the girl who just murdered your friend? If she had the stomach to eat cake over a comrade's grave, I wouldn't have suspected her of being a demon in the first place. If she hadn't been so obsessed with kicking me while I was down, Barrett and Nora might have lived a little longer. I almost wanted to tell her to whisper in her ear that she was the one who pulled the trigger on them, but that would be tacky. There's no point in ruining the flavor of the cake just yet. "You should be mourning her," Carla stammered, her composure cracking. "Even for a kid, you're being incredibly cold-hearted." "Oh, maybe you're right. I kept eating, enjoying the sight of Carla being visibly rattled. If she wanted me to mourn Nora, she'd better be prepared to join the victory parade for every demon I put in the ground. Whoa, hey, Sharon, you can't eat that much cake for lunch. Ugh." She's eaten half of one whole cake by herself. I feel sick just looking at it. The classroom doors swung open as Lena Sandrian and Monica walked in, fresh from their lessons. "Lena, Monica, you're late. I've been waiting forever," I chirped. Yeah, must be nice being a kid and getting a free pass from class," Monica grumbled. Then she froze. "Oh, she'd spotted Carla. Honestly, Monica, you're supposed to laugh at the stupid look on her face, not choke on your own spit. This demon just lost her friends and she still doesn't have a clue who the ghost is." Monica, of course, was probably having a mental breakdown. Playing a game where one wrong move from the demons means game over for you isn't exactly a fun hobby. She's a bit of a masochist if you ask me. I don't care if they find out. It's just a question of whether I kick the stool out from under them, or they do it themselves. Personally, I'd like to watch them squirm a bit longer before I pull the lever. Lena, ever the sweetheart, walked right up to Carla without a hint of suspicion. "I've been seeing you around Sharon a lot lately. Carla, are you two getting close?" It was a fair question. Since Carla was obsessed with my every move, we were practically joined at the hip. She used the excuse of watching the kid for Professor Natalie, but she was clearly overdoing it. The demons were desperate for any scrap of info on the ghost of the hero. I could tell the human students were looking at me with way too much interest. If I went and peed against a wall, they'd probably report it as a secret ritual. "Not exactly," Carla replied. Regaining her cool, Professor Natalie asked me to keep an eye on her while you two were busy, and just doing my job. "Well, I wish your job included stopping her from eating an entire cake," Lena sighed. "I guess the cafeteria staff could have stopped me, but why would they? I paid cash. Dietary choices aren't my department." Carla said dryly. "See, we're just two bored people hanging out," I added with a grin. Man, having a grumpy senior is such a drag for a junior like me. Anyway, Carla continued, It's a good thing the three of you are here. Because of the recent casualties, there's been a change in the housing assignments. I'm being moved into your room. I'll be seeing a lot more of you from now on. Eek! The pathetic, squeaky noise came from Monica. Obviously, thinking back, the room had 2 bunk beds, meaning it was designed for 4 people. Lena and Monica had been living large with only the 2 of them until I arrived, and now Carla was moving in to make it a full house. Oh, well, that's just perfect. This is going to be so much fun, right, Monica? What a surprise. It seemed the demons wanted to watch me 24 hours a day. They really thought that staring at a cute little girl's sleeping face would lead them to the ghost. It's almost adorable how stupid they are. The only real worry was Monica. I just hoped she wouldn't accidentally reveal her true self. Dealing with my own messes is one thing, but cleaning up after her sounds like a nightmare. How is this fun exactly? Monica hissed. Everything about it. I left. Absolutely everything. In every moment of ease, there is a reminder of those in hardship, and in every celebration, a duty to remember the truth, for the one who walks with a grateful heart finds joy even in the shadows, knowing that every end is but a new beginning. Chapter 43. Watching the show. My name is Sharon Berner, and I am a 7-year-old student knight. Since I have student in my title, I'm technically required to study the fine art of killing demons. The professors here seem to have a real passion for giving long-winded lectures on the basics like how a demon dies if you smash its core. Of course, since most of these teachers are actually demons wearing human skin, I'm sure they're doing their best to keep the truly useful information to themselves. Personally, I'm of the opinion that just beating them into a pulp with my maxed out physical stats is a lot faster than studying them, but it seems I'm the only one in the room who thinks that way. In this world, trying to beat a demon at magic is like a penguin trying to outfly a hawk. Unless you're a freak of nature like me, a regular human is always going to be on the losing end of a magical power struggle. Even sacred arms need mana to really shine. Even if a human gets a boost from a holy beast, the moment a demon gets their hands on that power, the gap doesn't just close, it widens into a canyon. That's the reality of the Galileo Academy of Magic, and the world at large. But enough about the normal people. Let's talk about the superhumans. You've certainly grown stronger since the emergency deployment. Lena, wait, hold on. Are you actually going for blood during a practice session? Indeed, there is no training quite like the real thing. I've blunted the edges so you won't lose your life, or you should be prepared for a few broken bones. I figured it would look bad if I never showed up to a single class after enrolling, so I decided to drop by and observe. I didn't expect to run into a hot-blooded lady of the manor type. She had an incredible amount of blonde hair, styled into elaborate, bouncy ringlets. She stood at least 6 feet tall, maybe even 6'1", towering over the other girls with a physique that could only be described as blessed. She was all curves and muscle in all the right places. She was currently swinging a massive pole and a halberd at Lena. It was an impressive sight. Lena isn't exactly a small girl, but standing next to this ultra-woman, she looked positively dainty. Lena was using every ounce of her skill to overcome the disadvantage in height and reach. Since they were using practice weapons, she couldn't rely on the special properties of her sacred arm, but that blonde girl was holding her own. Even after slaying 7 of those beasts, you still won't go down. Truly, you are a rival worthy of my name. Actually I think I got 8 of them, Lena panted. Then I shall claim 9 next time. To think a commoner could keep pace with me. The power of the peasantry is not to be underestimated. My background doesn't have anything to do with this, Lena yelled back. It has everything to do with it. To stand above others, to lead from the front, to be both the shield and the spear of the people that is the glory of the nobility. And as a noble, I cannot allow myself to lose to a commoner like you. I don't really get it. Can't we just be rivals because we're both knights? No. It is a noble exclusive privilege. Apparently, it's a noble thing, whatever that means. Even as their weapons clashed in a blur of steel, both Lena and the blonde girl looked like they were barely breaking a sweat. The other students were trying hard, but the gap in quality was like night and day. You really can't use Lena or this girl as a benchmark for a normal student. Honestly, if someone told me they were demons in disguise, I'd believe it based on that strength alone. But they weren't. They were way too flashy for undercover work, and Monica wasn't shaking in her boots. So they were almost certainly human. So, what are you supposed to be doing? I asked, looking over at Monica. She was sitting right next to me, staring at the other student like she was grading them for an auction. I'm trying to manage some death flags, Monica whispered, realizing I was in my true persona and feeling safe to talk. That girl, the blonde one sparring with Lena, her name is Victoria Dortona. She's ridiculously strong. Seems like a good thing to me, I remarked. Well, yes, but she's one of those support characters. She starts with amazing stats, but if you rely on her too much in the early game, she's scripted to be permanently lost. I was checking to see if she's triggered a flag yet. Pretend. The flag is flying high and proud. Monica sighed, looking genuinely stressed. It seemed that by killing those chimeras the other day, Victoria had pushed her experience points into the danger zone. My condolences, I said flatly. I'm not even going to argue with you. Look, even if she owns an arcana weapon, it doesn't really involve you, does it? I see. She was trying to bait me with shiny toys. I have to admire the guts it takes to try and cut a deal with me. You don't think I'd just let a demon kill this Victoria girl so I could inherit her weapon? It'd be a lot faster, I teased. I almost laughed at my own suggestion. It was a perfectly logical shortcut. Oh. Pinching my side is cheating, Monica hissed. Oops. My hand moved faster than my mouth. It's one of my few flaws. After a moment of writhing in pain, Monica glared at me with watery eyes and spoke firmly. I thought about that, but the original Sharon aside. You're still well. You aren't completely rotten. Are you? I'm not rotten at all. It's a figure of speech. Stop pinching. What I'm trying to say is, you don't seem like the type to abandon people who are actually trying their best to live. Oh, is that what you think, big sister Monica? Am I wrong? Who knows? I wonder. Did I show too much of myself? Did she see through my acting? No, that wasn't it. In my previous life, there were no scales to quantify talent, but as long as a person is alive, they are constantly learning, whether they realize it or not. What Monica had was an eye for people. It wasn't a game mechanic, it was a soul-level intuition she'd brought from her old world that had allowed her to glimpse the core of my being. Interesting. This girl, Monica. You don't have any friends, do you? I do too. Why do you keep insulting me every chance you get? I figured I'd show off my own powers of observation. I guess I hit the nail on the head, didn't I? The true measure of a person is found not in the titles they claim, but in the sincerity they show when no one is watching. For a heart that values every life as precious is a light that can never be extinguished by the shadows of the world. Chapter 44, The Lady and the Thug. It was only natural, I suppose. Unlike me, who was only attending class as a guest observer, Monica was a bottom-tier student. There was no way she'd be allowed to skip out on training just to sit around and chat with a world-class beauty of a toddler. She'd been spotted by Natalie Frigga, formerly known as Alyssa Callisto, the combat instructor, and was currently being marched off to the training grounds with the expression of a pig headed for the slaughterhouse. I couldn't help but snicker. Serves her right. She'd better come back at least a little stronger than she was yesterday. Taking her place on the bench was Victoria Dortona herself. Up close, she was even more imposing, a woman who was large in every sense of the word, carrying an equally massive weapon. It felt like a scene out of a big-budget action flick. Then again, since this world started as a game, I guess that isn't far off. Do you mind if I sit? She asked. When someone over 6 feet tall looks down at you, their gaze carries a natural weight, even without any hostile intent. There aren't many people who could look at a woman like that and say no, especially not a 7-year-old girl. Not at all. Well, you're huge, big sister. A clever child who understands the way of the world, she said with a smirk. Size is justice, little one. To slaughter demons and protect the common folk, physical stature and raw muscle are absolute necessities, though as a commoner, size doesn't really concern you. If a demon ever attacks, you must simply use a large noble like myself as your shield. Good grief, she's a walking advocate of bigger is better doctrine. I have to admit, in a contest of pure scale, even I wouldn't stand a chance. The bench groaned under her weight as she sat. Her muscle density was terrifying. This was a heavy-duty 3-seater bench, yet it sounded like it was at its limit. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Victoria Dortona, eldest daughter of the House of Dortona and heir to the pride of the Golden Lion. I've heard quite a bit about your circumstances from Lena. It must have been a harrowing ordeal, but you need not worry anymore. As a fellow victim of the demon scourge, I shall permit you to look upon me as an older sister. Wait, hold on. Where is she going with this? My backstory wasn't that tragic, was it? I mean, sure, my village got wiped out, and on the way here some perverted demon named Rosen tried to turn me into a plaything, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't a big deal. So big sister Vicky. That will do for a start. However, those close to me call me Vicky or Vic. Eventually, perhaps then big sister Vicky it is. I haven't forgotten the virtue of modesty, but I also know exactly how to play the sweet child card when someone is feeling protective. I'd be an idiot not to utilize this face and my age to their full potential. My pride as a former man. If throwing that away makes a demon's life miserable, I'll toss it in the trash with a smile. Very well, Sharon, as long as I am here, I shall ensure a commoner like you wants for nothing in this academy. I'm already doing pretty well for myself. Actually, I've got bodyguards I didn't even ask for. The best part is I can discard them like used tissues whenever they get in the way. Thank you, big sister Vicky. I'm really happy you're being so nice, but is it okay if I'll ask you something? Of course. It is the right of the commoner to seek guidance from the nobility, especially a fragile child such as yourself. You mentioned we both had our homes attacked by demons. Do you mind telling me about it? Sorry, lady, but I don't care about social minds. I'm a kid, I can stomp wherever I want. Very well. It would be unfair for me to know your story without sharing mine. She was a dutiful woman. Most people would just stay quiet about things they didn't want to discuss. Despite all her talk about ranks and status, she was surprisingly honorable. I can see why Monica thought I'd end up protecting her. Now, how to play this there isn't much to tell. Really, as the demons advance, humanity's territory continues to shrink. The Dortona lands were on far border. After the hero fell, the demons turned their sights on us first. My old village was beyond the border, practically a wasteland, which is why the demons hit us so early. Luckily, thanks to my little fortress defense stunt, most of the villagers got away, but we didn't escape without casualties. If my backwater village was that bad, her estate must have been a bloodbath. My father, my mother, my brother, everyone who held a sacred arm fought with lion-like courage to let the people escape. This struggle was valiant. But in the end, no, the people and I reached the holy city safely. That makes it our victory, even though she'd lost her family. Victoria's eyes didn't waver. She was a strong girl. You're really tough. Big sister Vicky. I have to be. All I have left now are a few coins, this healthy body, and the people who survived with me. I have no time for tears. My family's souls will find peace once I've reclaimed our home from those wretched Callisto sisters. Until then, they will forgive me for not mourning. I actually felt a spark of respect for her as she clenched her fist. I thought she was just a loud character, but she had some serious depth. Wait, did she say the Callisto sisters? Callistoras in Alyssa Callisto and Rosen Callisto. Sorry. Vicky, I already put one of your targets in the ground, and the other one is currently over there, training Monica and the other slackers. What a world. Should I laugh? Lena and I share the same history of loss, but I was surprised by how quickly she recovered mentally. She isn't even a noble. Of course, I'm glad her family is safe, but even so you noticed that too. Lena isn't exactly fine yet. She still can't sleep unless she's cuddling me like a teddy bear. Sharon, do you know why she's so resilient? Maybe it's just because Lena is special. I really hoped she wouldn't dig deeper. If I ended up stuck between Lena and Victoria, the bed was going to get way too crowded. Strength is not measured by the absence of grief, but by the resolve to carry on for the sake of those who remain, for the one who turns their sorrow into a shield for others finds a nobility that no title can ever bestow. Chapter 45. Whispers of suspicion. It had been 1 month since Nora's death and Barrett's disappearance were officially reported to the Academy. Ever since then, a strange, heavy atmosphere had settled over the Galileo Academy of Magic. Even in the sprawling bathhouse, crowded with female students washing away the grime of training, you could feel it. The tension was thick enough to choke on. There were just too many unanswered questions about that bizarre monster attack. Thanks to the veteran Holy Knights fighting with everything they had, student casualties were lower than expected, but the flip side of that coin was grim. Over 100 regular Holy Knights had lost their lives. If an attack like that happened again, Lena rubbed her arms, trying to shake off the dark premonition. Monsters could appear anywhere, but usually the ones that wandered into human territory were about as dangerous as stray dogs. These were different. I feel bad for Monica, but she really was lucky, Lena thought. Given their respective skill levels, Monica should have been a casualty long before Barrett or Nora. When the report first came in that Monica's team had been hit, Lena had braced herself for the worst, but the outcome had been the exact opposite. According to Monica, her teammates had simply vanished the moment the fighting started. Perhaps their decision to go off on their own was what sealed their fate. But there was something else bothering Lena. That insect monster, it was the only one with a demon core. Until Carla had pointed it out, Lena hadn't even noticed. Normally, magical beasts don't have cores. That's why their bodies remain behind when they're killed, whereas demons turn to ash. And yet, even after I shattered that core, the monster didn't disappear. It had taken another blow to finish it off. Even with 2 people using their holy armament release, it had been a desperate, narrow victory. Lena hoped with all her heart she'd never have to face something like that again. And the core wasn't it the only anomaly. When I broke that thing, the ownership of Nora's sacred arm transferred to me. Sacred arms are bound to the soul. Usually, the only way to take one is to kill the owner. There were rare exceptions like the legendary blades of old that stayed within a bloodline or among close friends, but the fool's scimitar didn't seem to be one of those. The only other exception was when a demon stole a sacred arm from a human. Once tainted by demonic energy, the weapon was no longer a holy blade. It became a demonic relic, bound not to a soul, but to a demon core. What was truly terrifying was that if a sacred arm fell into the hands of a demon, it could be passed up the chain to even more powerful monsters like the greater demons, who were in a league of their own. With no hero to protect humanity, such a shift in power would be the death sentence for the world. When the core shattered, the fool's scimitar came to me. Logically, that means Nora was killed by that monster, right? Lena knew life would be easier if she just accepted that explanation. It was simple. It made sense. But if that were true, if the monster killed her, why was her weapon stored inside its core? Or what? Lena let the hot water pour over her head, trying to wash away the unease. But the suspicion wouldn't budge. It all started with those 8 beasts she had cut down before the main fight. Those 8 monsters, there was something wrong with them. I wouldn't have known if I wasn't using the blade of just retribution. It was a sensation Lena found hard to put into words. The way the blade bit into the meat and snapped the bone to anyone else, it would have felt like any other monster. But her sword was different. It spoke to her heart. You are killing what must be killed, but you are also cutting what should not be cut. That was the message the sword sent to her soul. Those monsters were a mixture of things. And that insect woman, it made more sense if the insect was a hybrid, a mix of demon and beast. That would explain the demon core. But then where was Barrett's sacred arm? It was common knowledge that Nora and Barrett were always together. Lena couldn't imagine a scenario where Nora was turned into a monster while Barrett simply ran away, but his weapon hadn't been in the core. It was possible he was still out there, hiding. But then why hadn't he returned to the academy? Hypotheses were easy to build, but she had no proof, only a strange feeling from her sword, a monster with a core, and a dead girl's weapon. She could spend all day guessing, but there was a reason these dark thoughts were circling in the back of Lena's mind. It was because of the sinister rumor currently spreading through the school like a virus. Oh, it hurts. Please. Victoria, my arm isn't broken, is it? My leg's still attached. Right. Now. Settle down. It's just a few colourful bruises. A dignified voice replied, think of them as badges of honour, but you must wash up. You can't end the day covered in dust and sweat. You'll never recover your strength that way. She's right, and if you go back to the room smelling like that, the dorm mother will have your head. You don't want to sleep in the garden like a stray dog, do you, big sister Monica? Hey, I just got worked over by Professor Natalie, and you're calling me the dog. I have little badges of honour on my skin. I think you're the only person who would brag about being a human bruise, Monica. The noisy chatter of the bathhouse cut through Lena's thoughts. She recognized the voices instantly. Monica, Sharon, and Victoria, who seemed to have become part of their little group lately. Oh, Lena, Sharon chirped, spotting her. She scurried over as fast as she could without sipping on the wet tiles. Victoria followed, practically dragging Monica along with her. Hey, Sharon, I would have waited if I knew you were coming. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's okay. I just got here. Would you help me wash my hair? Of course. Here. It was as if Sharon had been waiting for her to offer. She sat down in front of the mirror and turned her back to Lena. As Lena began to lather the girl's beautiful silver hair, the dark thoughts finally started to fade. Ever since Sharon had arrived at the academy, Lena felt like she was constantly being saved by her. Whether the little girl realized it or not. My. I cannot be outdone in hospitality, Victoria declared. I shall wash Monica's hair. Wait, what? No, I can do it myself. Really, I appreciate the thought, but a commoner has both the right and the duty to accept the charity of a noble. Now, sit. Moo, help me. Lena, Sharon. Ha. Good luck, Monica, Sharon giggled. Things looked a bit chaotic over there. Lena thought about stepping in to help, but she didn't want to ruin the bonding moment. Sharon seemed happy, and Monica would survive, probably. She'd make sure to check for broken bones later. Hey, Lena, Sharon said softly, her eyes closed to keep the soap out. Has something happened lately? You seem like you've got a lot on your mind. Lena paused. Had she been that obvious? Sharon must have picked up on her mood a long time ago. I was waiting for the right time to say something. I guess I'm making her worry too much. Lena thought. She couldn't bring herself to lie to a 7-year-old who was clearly concerned about her. Besides, when she really thought about it, it was just a silly rumor. Sharon would probably just laugh and tell her she was overthinking things. So, she said it's just a rumor I heard. Lena whispered, people are saying that there might be demons hiding right here in the academy. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Truth is a light that clears the fog of doubt, yet the heart must be careful not to let suspicion become a prison. For a soul that sees shadows in every corner may eventually forget the warmth of the sun. Chapter 46, A Seed of Doubt. Sharon Berner was an incredibly sensible child. Despite her age, she had a way of speaking her mind directly to Lena and Monica without a hint of hesitation. She wasn't exactly bratty, she just had a natural charm that made it impossible to stay mad at her unless you were Monica, whom she seemed to enjoy teasing at every opportunity. She was the kind of person who never turned down the serious conversation and would listen to any nonsense you had to say while tucked into bed. To Lena, it felt almost like having an exceptionally gifted younger sister. If that rumor is true, it's pretty scary, Sharon chirped. I mean, this school is supposed to be where they train strong knights like you, right? If demons are hiding in a place like this, things must be really bad. Well, Lena trailed off. If the rumor was true, really bad didn't even begin to cover it. Now that the miracle of the hero had been spent, humanity's only hope was to pray for a successor and protect the lake that gave birth to the sacred arms. If demons were nesting within the Galileo Academy of Magic, it was the equivalent of humanity having a knife held to its collective throat. I've noticed you've been a bit distracted lately when you're supposed to be dodging my halberd, Victoria Dortona interrupted. She was currently massaging Monica's stiff body, though the force she used was closer to a professional wrestling submission hold. Lena, you mustn't let yourself be swayed by such groundless gossip. It's common for the peasantry to indulge in tall tales, but spreading rumors that lower morale and worse, scare poor Sharon is hardly becoming of a knight. Oh, Victoria, please, stop. You're challenging the very laws of anatomy with my shoulder. It hurts. Monica shrieked. This commoner is so dramatic. Victoria sighed, giving Monica's joints one last firm pop. A knight should at least be able to touch their hands behind their back. Lena, think about this logically. As long as they have horns and those glowing cores, it's impossible to mistake a demon for a human. Even if we somehow missed one, it makes no sense for a demon to hide in the academy and do absolutely nothing while we sharpen our blades to kill them. Victoria's argument was sound. It was hard to imagine a bloodthirsty demon sitting quietly in a classroom at the Galileo Academy of Magic while humans prepared for war. Outside the walls, where safety wasn't guaranteed, there had been a few student casualties, but those were usually blamed on the arrogance and overconfidence of high achievers. The only major incident recently had been Barrett and Nora, and aside from Sharon occasionally bruising herself during her extreme training, the academy was peaceful. If demons were truly lurking in the halls, the silence was inexplicable. Lena knew her suspicion was based on nothing but a gut feeling and a single, unexplainable factor that one insect like beast had possessed a demon core. Lately, there are even rumors that a ghost of the hero is out there hunting demons and monsters. Victoria continued. Ever since the hero died, the hearts of the common folk have become unstable. Isn't that right, Monica? Don't look at me like I'm the official spokesperson for the peasants, Monica panted, rubbing her sore shoulder. But they do say there's no smoke without fire. Even if it's exaggerated, there might be a grain of truth in it. Right. Good grief. I don't expect you to share the vision of the highborn, but even a commoner needs the mindset of a warrior. Monica, you need to build more muscle. Then you won't be so easily misled by silly stories. Why is the answer always more muscle? Muscle was important, sure, but it was at the point right now. Big Sister Vicky, Sharon said softly. You know about the attack on Dolgravlina's village before I came to the academy, right? Professor Natalie Frigga told me not to talk about it because it would cause trouble, But those demons were disguised as humans. If they can do that, don't you think they could sneak in here? Wait, what? Victoria froze. I think the rumor probably came from the student knights who were with Professor Natalie. They'd never heard of demons turning into humans before. And besides, it's hard to graduate from the Galileo Academy of Magic. But it's pretty easy to get in, isn't it? That makes the rumor feel a lot more real. Victoria fell silent, her brow furrowed in deep thought. Lena, too, began to weigh the possibilities. The more they thought about it, the further the truth seemed to slip into the fog. It was easy to believe or to doubt, but both paths felt incredibly dangerous. No, Victoria said finally, her voice firm. I cannot bring myself to doubt the comrades who stand at my back. She was the first to reach a conclusion. To believe the rumor meant viewing every fellow student with suspicion. Lena and Victoria went fools. They knew how exhausting it was to live in constant doubt. When you were outside the walls, facing certain death, you had to be able to trust the person next to you. To do otherwise was madness. Trusting her comrades without question was Victoria's greatest virtue and her most dangerous flaw. Besides, even if there is a demon among us, it doesn't matter, Victoria declared with absolute confidence. The moment they make a move, I will turn them into a stain on the floor with my halberd. On the honor of the House of Dortona, I won't let a single person be harmed. She crushed her own doubts with pure, unadulterated pride. You're so strong, Victoria, Lena murmured. Even though they were the same, Victoria's mental fortitude, its league of it was something Lena, a simple village girl, felt she lacked. Victoria's radiant nobility made Lena feel ashamed for even considering that her friends, or even Monica, or Sharon could be monsters. Lena, don't say that as if it doesn't involve you, Victoria said, looking her in the eye. If believing is a form of strength, then doubting is a form of strength too. Unfortunately, skepticism isn't my specialty. I'll be the shield that protects your back, so you use your own strengths to keep us safe. Victoria was aware of her own limitations. Blind trust was noble, but it was also a refusal to think. She had found someone she could trust even if it meant being betrayed, and that person was Lena. The two strongest students in the class reached a silent agreement. Lena would keep a watchful eye, and Victoria would provide the unwavering faith. However, there was one person in the room who didn't care about trust or doubt. She was focused entirely on the fact that the rumor existed at all. Well, I guess it doesn't matter if the rumor is true or not. Sharon chirped, her smile wide and innocent. After all, we have Big Sister Lena and Big Sister Vicky to protect us. But you two should remember one thing. She leaned in, her golden eyes sparkling with an intensity that didn't match her childish face. In a fight like this, the one who does exactly what the other person hates most is the one who wins. True character is tested in how we treat those who can do nothing for us, and true wisdom lies in knowing when to open the heart and when to guard the soul. For a house built on trust is strong, but a house built on truth is eternal. Chapter 47 of The Next Sacrifice. I'm serious. I know I'm the one who lit the fuse, but do you actually realize how thin the ice is that we're standing on? You were the one who said you'd do anything to save that posh lady. Whether it's thin ice or a stone bridge, we don't have time to stop and tap the ground to see if it's solid. We just have to run and pray it doesn't give way, right? I don't have that kind of guts. We're actually going to die this time. Oh, please. If we die, maybe we'll just reincarnate into a different game. Maybe something cozy and relaxing next time. Hey, maybe I should start a rumor about the next. What do you think, Monica? You love a good story. Sharon took a breath, feeling a biting night wind fill her lungs. They were on the roof of the girls' dormitory at the Galileo Academy of Magic. In the deep shadows of the night, her golden eyes shimmered with an eerie, predatory light as she watched Monica. The rumors currently paralyzing the Galileo Academy of Magic had been planted by a single failing student who had exploited the demon's blind spots. Two specific whispers were making the rounds. The first, that the ghost of the hero was the one hunting monsters around the capital, and second, that the ghost was only there because demons were hiding within the academy itself. Sharon hadn't spread these herself. Under the constant, watchful eye of Carla Lennon, she had played the part of the obedient, adorable child to perfection. Instead, she had used a proxy. Beside her stood a pathetic underachiever whom the demons didn't view as even a minor threat, a girl who had become Sharon's hands and feet. If the demons had moved faster to find the source of the leak, they might have avoided this. But they were too late. Man, look at Legion go. Sharon mused. Since I'm stuck here playing a cripple, she's out there doing all the heavy lifting. Thanks to her, The rumors feel real without you even having to try. For the past 1 month, it felt as if the goddess of luck was personally smiling down on Sharon. Everything was falling into place. Take Legion, for example, a superhuman created from the bodies of 22 people whom Sharon had mercifully let go. At this very moment, she was outside the walls, tearing through monsters and demons alike. That chaos had created a massive opening, caught between the physical threat of the ghost of the hero, or so they thought, and the psychological warfare of the rumors. The demons in the academy were constantly on the back foot. "It's true," Monica whispered. "I didn't think it would spread this fast. Rumors that stir up fear or hurt the people in charge spread like wildfire. It's like a forest fire. Putting it out is the hard part, not that it's our problem. Heh. Just imagining those bastards sweating while we're tucked away in a warm bath makes me feel great." Sharon leaned back on a wooden bench, crossing her legs with a wicked, sadistic grin that belonged on a seasoned criminal, not a 7-year-old girl. Just as she said, Carla, who was tasked with watching her, was looking more haggard by the day. In fact, most of the demons hiding in the school were showing signs of extreme stress. Monica let out a heavy sigh. She understood why. Even if the humans were technically inferior to them, being constantly surrounded by suspicious eyes was a nightmare for a sleeper agent. Outside the walls, they had to worry about the ghost of the hero. Inside the academy, they were surrounded by student knights who were becoming increasingly paranoid. For a demon, being discovered was a death sentence. Unless you were at the level of a greater demon, this environment was like having a silk cord slowly tighten around your neck. It's beyond stressful, Monica thought. If one demon gets Carla, they'll all be exposed. In the original game, the demon characters were actually pretty close-knit. If they stayed calm, the rumors wouldn't actually hurt them. As long as a demon didn't run out of mana or drop their transformation to use their full physical power, the demon core and horns remained hidden. But the situation was equally bad for the humans. Just as Lena Sandrian and Victoria Dortona had been shaken, the environment of constant suspicion was eroding the mental health of the student knights, who already lived on the edge of death. Even spreading the rumors was high risk. If they were caught, tripped to the detention room for disrupting school order would be the least of their worries. The result of their work was a literal hell where humans suspected their friends and demons lived in terror of being unmasked, and there was only one person who wanted this hellless devil in a child's body. This is getting fun. Maybe I should start leaving love letters on the demons' desks next. Something like, "I'm watching you." That's impossible. I don't have your level of stealth mastery. I'd get caught in a second. TCH. Useless. Sharon let out a disappointed half, looking at Monica like a child whose toy gun had failed to fire a plastic bullet. Whatever. After 1 month of slow roasting them, those idiots have finally been backed into a corner. It looks like they're about to make a huge mistake to try and kill the rumors. A mistake? Monica asked. Whenever this devil looked happy, it usually meant something horrific was about to happen. She felt a knot of dread in her stomach, but she had to know. Yeah, apparently. They're going to overwrite the rumors with some big news of their own. They're planning to execute Victoria. Ooh, scary stuff. Sharon gave a theatrical little shiver, though she clearly wasn't cold, or even remotely afraid. Wait, what? That's not what we agreed on. The news hit Monica like a bucket of ice water. She had spent the last month risking her life to spread those rumors specifically to save Victoria. To hear that it was all leading to her death was more than she could take. Well, I guess we pushed the rats a little too hard. You did too good of a job, Monica. You were the one who told me to do it. What are we going to do? The golden eyes shimmering in the darkness offered nothing but a cold, unsettling smile. Sharon didn't feel bad at all. In fact, she seemed to be enjoying Monica's panic. Monica dropped to her knees. She cursed herself for making a deal with this devil. She had gambled on the idea that Sharon wouldn't abandon someone who was fighting to survive, like Victoria or Lena. But now she felt like her judgment had been completely wrong. And so the cat gets bitten by the mouse. You never know what a cornered rat will do. But hey, Monica, you're in luck. How is any of this lucky? Because the person in front of you isn't a cat, I'm the hero. Those idiots are planning to bring me along to the execution as a witness to lure out the ghost of the hero. Hair. 2 birds with 1 stone. Greedy bastards, aren't they? Monica felt the tips of her fingers go cold. The goddess of luck wasn't done yet. The situation was spiraling exactly where Sharon wanted it to go. Behind her silver hair, which caught the moonlight, her golden eyes danced with a dark, manic glee. They're touching my arcana weapon, my toy. I'm not going to give them a chance to bite back. I'm going to crush them until there's nothing left. The devil was still thirsty for demon blood. Words have the power to build or destroy. Yet the truth remains untouched by the storm of rumors, for the one who seeks to harm others through deception will eventually find themselves trapped in the very web they spun. Chapter 48. The pointing intruder in the deepest reaches of the Galileo Academy of Magic, shrouded in absolute silence and oppressive darkness, lay a place where no human dared to tread. It was a restricted zone hidden beneath the cathedral, accessible only with the explicit permission of a greater demon, the Undercraft. To the people of the Academy, this place simply didn't exist. I assume you're both aware of the rumors currently poisoning the school. Natalie Frigga, or rather, Alyssa Callista said, her voice cutting through the gloom. She stared intently at Vannies and Colour Linen, her gaze demanding nothing less than absolute submission. Well, what do you have to say for yourself, Colour Linen? The lash of her tongue struck Carla first. Even if Alyssa's anger was completely unreasonable, Carla didn't have the spine to tell her it was out of her jurisdiction. She stood there like a frog pinned by the gaze of a cobra, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly as she struggled to find the right words. A single whim from Alyssa could end Carla's life in an instant. The Undercroft was spacious enough for a small army to maneuver, filled with heavy stone tables and chairs, but in this enclosed space with only one exit, Carla's silent sadism technique felt like a cheap child's toy compared to the power radiating from her superior. Alyssa, the responsibility is mine. Vannies interjected smoothly. Don't take it out on Carla. Oh, I wasn't aware I was looking for someone to blame, Alyssa replied, her eyes flashing. Unless, of course, you're telling me you actually understand what's going on, Vannies. Unfortunately, no. If I did, I would have already dealt with it. But the ghost of the hero running wild outside while these rumors spread like a plague within it can't be a coincidence. We've confirmed a link between the ghost and Sharon, haven't we? Is it possible the girl is behind this? Alyssa's piercing gaze swung back to Carla. No, Carla squeaked. I've kept her under constant surveillance since the incident a month ago. She hasn't done anything suspicious. Whenever she was out of my sight, she was with her roommates. If she'd made contact with the ghost, we would have seen the fallout by now. Fallout? Can things get much worse than this? This was the first time since the demons had taken control of the academy that they'd felt truly cornered. It was more than a failure. It was an embarrassment. They'd been so focused on the ghost of the hero prowling beyond the walls that by the time the rumors reached Alyssa's ears, it was impossible to track down who had whispered them first. Knowing her sister's killer was right under her nose but remaining out of reach was an insult Alyssa could barely stomach. She was barely holding herself together, her rational mask threatening to slip as she fought the urge to vent her rage on Vannies' subordinates. Alyssa, I know, we've been outplayed by a ghost. I can admit that much. She let out a sharp, frustrated breath. Vannies, I assume you have a counter-strategy. I have a plan, but it puts Sharon at risk. Are you comfortable with that? As long as she's breathing, I don't care. Her sacred arm is built for durability, after all. She can handle a bit of rough treatment. Using Sharon, the girl meant to be an offering to the late Rosen as bait, was a bitter pill, but Alyssa couldn't stand another 1 second of that ghost wandering free. Vannies, sensing her desperation, laid out the details. We use Sharon as bait to lure the ghost out. We might not be able to kill the rumors entirely, but we can bury them under something much bigger. We execute a high-profile student, someone with talent or popularity, right in front of Sharon. It'll traumatize the girl, distract the student body, and if we're lucky, the ghost will show himself to save the day. The disaster with Barrett and Nora only happened because they were caught off guard. This time, they would have an ambush waiting. Even if the ghost didn't bite, killing a promising student tonight would create the kind of chaotic distraction the demons needed to reassert control. I see. If you're that confident, I assume the details are already finalized. They are. Pick someone from this list, Vannies said, handing a single sheet of paper to Alyssa. Any of these deaths will get the result we need. The page was a list of the most promising young talents in the academy, the very people who would one day grow into legitimate threats to the demon race. Normally, they would have to be careful, masking their deaths as training accidents or failed missions to avoid suspicion. But the current chaos gave them cover. Alyssa didn't even need to look at the names. She already knew the faces of the most gifted students. Her top choice was Lena Sandrian. After stealing Nora's weapon and growing far faster than anticipated, she was the obvious candidate for elimination. She looked down at the list to confirm the name. Very well. In that case, let's go with... Alyssa stopped. The words died in her throat. A tiny, pale hand had reached out from the empty air above the table. It was small, like a child's, and its index finger was pointing directly at the name Victoria Dortona. What an intruder! Before she could even finish the sentence, Vannies had already drawn his weapons. They were a pair of asymmetrical revolvers, patterned in stark black and white. Their name was Funeral 13, a pair of arcana weapons representing death. Vannies scanned the room, his finger on the trigger. There was no one there, just Alyssa, Carla, and himself. Where was he supposed to aim? What was he supposed to shoot? He looked at Alyssa, his eyes asking for a target she had seen and he had not. Shoot. Vannies. Kill it. But by then, even Alyssa had lost sight of it. Random fire then. Fine by me. Vannies growled. The power of Funeral 13 was absolute. They existed only to take life. Their bullets would seek out a target's life force regardless of whether they were hiding behind a wall. It was a simple, brutal ability, and with Vannies' near-infinite mana pool, he could fire a relentless hail of lead. He began to unload. Bullets tore through the room, seeking out any spark of life that wasn't one of the 3 demons present. Most of them slammed into the rats and insects skittering behind the stone walls. There. Carla let out a pathetic yelp, ducking as bullets ricocheted off the ceiling and floor. Alyssa and Vannies remained calm, tracking their trajectory of every shot until, finally, Vannies lowered his guns with a sigh. Well, that was a lovely little intrusion. Your wound too tight. Alyssa, relax. He pointed his gun toward the twitching carcass of a rat he'd just blasted. That was the biggest life force his bullets had managed to find in the entire room. Yes, you're right. My detection spells didn't trigger. I must have just seen something. She looked again, but the small hand was gone. It had only appeared for a heartbeat, and only from the wrist down. She took a deep breath and looked at the list again, but the vision didn't return. Anyway, Vannies said, holstering his weapons, back to the matter at hand. Which student are we killing? Logic dictated it should be Lena Sandrian, and yet Alyssa couldn't shake the feeling that that tiny hand was more than just a hallucination. Fien, let's go with Victoria Dortona. Victoria, not Lena. Is that a problem? No, just a bit surprising. Was it a trick, an omen, or a trap laid by the ghost? If it was a trap, she would walk right into it and snap the jaws shut. She would find that ghost, force him to beg for forgiveness for what he did to Rosen, and then she would describe in gruesome detail the horrific future she had planned for Sharon before finally ending him. I want enough firepower to ensure the ghost is either captured or killed. Alyssa commanded. Use my personal guard if you have to. Just get it done. As you wish, my queen. No plot is hidden from the one who watches all, and every scheme eventually comes to light. For while the heart of man may devise many paths, the ultimate truth is a steady hand that guides the world toward its final justice. Chapter 49. A fragile truce. Having a good excuse is important in any line of work. Even I, as much as I enjoy putting those bottom-tier stains known as demons into the ground, like to have a reason even if it's just because they have a nasty habit of slaughtering humans. Without a pretext, I'm just a sadist who likes hurting monsters for fun, but the demons hiding in this school weren't idiots either. They weren't about to announce they were hunting the ghost of the hero just for the hell of it. Instead, they had a very official-sounding justification, so a suspicious individual in illegal possession of sacred arms, Victoria Dortona mused. Her voice broke the heavy silence inside the moving carriage. She was voicing the exact doubt every student in the Galileo Academy of Magic had, except for me and Monica, and the various monsters hiding in plain sight. That's the official word, Carla Lena replied. She sat across from Victoria, crossing her legs with the practiced air of a school representative. The reports of sightings regarding this ghost of the hero have become too frequent to ignore over the last 1 month. The Academy decided it's too dangerous to let an untrained civilian run around with sacred arms. It's for the public's safety. Managing sacred arms is a nightmare in this world, since the ownership of the blade transfers to whoever kills the wielder. The system is a mess. That's why killing a holy knight carries a heavier sentence than regular murder. You either get sent to a labor camp for criminal warriors or you get the executioner's block. Neither is a particularly fun career path. I understand the need to detain a dangerous person, Victoria said, reaching over to pat my head, but I still don't see why Sharon has to come along. If this person is illegally holding sacred arms, they must have killed at least one knight to get them. Why bring a child to a scene like that? Don't ask me, Carla shrugged. Besides, even if the person is dangerous, There's only one of them. With a top-tier student like Victoria Dortona on the team, we can handle 1 or 2 deadweights, can't we? When she said deadweights, she shot a pointed look at me and Monica. Hey Monica, looks like you're being counted as 2 people's worth of uselessness. Monica, who was sitting next to Khan looking like a nervous wreck, just gave a weak nod. She looked like a bench warmer who had accidentally been called up to the big leagues, even though nothing had happened yet. She was already mentally exhausted. There was a reason Monica was so off her game. Aside from the coachman, the carriage held the 4 of us and me, Victoria, Monica, and Carla, Lena Sandrian, the protagonist of this whole story and Monica's only hope for survival, was nowhere to be found. The demons clearly didn't want any wild cards around for Victoria's scheduled execution. I had to admire their commitment to making sure Victoria ended up dead. Besides, I only have 1 pair of hands. I can't look after 2 useless tag-alongs at once. Narrowing the target down to her actually made my life easier. Anyway, I'm sure it'll be fine. Carla continued. The ghost of the hero seems to only target magical beasts. If we can just talk to them and explain the situation, I'm sure we can avoid a fight. That wasn't entirely accurate. Legion, the composite being I had created, was specifically hunting demons as well as beasts, which meant it's true that the ghost hasn't attacked any humans, I chirped, leaning forward. But what about demons? Since they're called the ghost of the hero, they must have killed way more demons than regular knights, right? What do you think? Carla Senior? Who knows? Carla muttered. There haven't been any sightings in areas with high demon activity yet, but if the ghost runs into a demon, a fight is pretty much a given. Well, look at that. She knew exactly what she was talking about. A run-in with Legion meant combat, especially since there was a demon sitting right here in the carriage. I guess we're going to be in a fight then, I said with a cheerful, childish giggle. Look, I didn't want to play the precocious kid role, but the tension in the carriage was freezing. Besides, my mental age makes acting like a 7-year-old a bit of a stretch sometimes. Excuse me. Carla's eyes narrowed. Sharon, are you implying that I'm a demon? That's exactly what I'm saying, I chirped. Was I stuttering? Or has all that time skipping class to watch me made you a bit slow on the uptake? The atmosphere went from freezing to boiling in a heartbeat. Monica looked like she was about to pass out, and Carla was glaring at me with enough intensity to kill. Too bad for her. She's a loyal little guard dog for her superiors, so she can't touch me without orders. I knew this mission was her chance at redemption. Her job was to lure Victoria and me to the ambush point, then split off with Monica to create an alibi. It was such an easy gig for a demon who had just been demoted for letting her teammates die. The higher-ups were even willing to forgive her for the 200 kicks she'd given me with her silent sadism technique. Of course, I didn't care about the kicks. Thanks to my insensitivity skill, it didn't hurt, and I didn't have a single bruise left. But just because it didn't hurt doesn't mean I ever planned on forgiving her. Sharon, that's enough, Victoria said firmly. Even though she was the target, Victoria was the only one keeping a level head. To her, someone who had zero suspicion that Carla was a monster, my words were the ultimate insult. No matter the reason, accusing a classmate of being a demon without proof is beneath you. For the sake of Carla's honor and your own pride, you must apologize immediately. But Big Sister Vicky, I said, looking up at her with big, watery eyes. If I had proof, would it be okay to call her a demon then? Wait, what? Sharon, stop this nonsense. Carla stammered. Easy there. Carla Senior, you're looking a little rattled. You want to confess now. Heh, being toyed with by a child is the price you pay for failing to build a relationship with me over the last month. I never had any intention of being your friend, but you could have at least tried. Carla, please, stay calm. Victoria said. Sharon, if you truly have proof, then speak up. Well, even if Big Sister Vicky asks, Carla Senior, maybe it's better if you just tell them yourself. A confession might get her a lighter sentence. She could sell out her friends. I don't know how the humans of this world treat demons who turn traitor, but maybe she'd get to keep her demon core if she was lucky. I have nothing to confess. Carla shouted. Fien, I gave you a chance for a graceful exit, and you threw it away. Don't blame me for what happens next. You demons are all going to hell anyway, but I was willing to let you pick which boat you took across the river. If you want the sinking one, who am I to stop you? Sigh. Do you really not remember, Carla Senior, when you moved into our room, you threw away the doll that Big Sister Lena made for me? I think only a demon would be heartless enough to do something like that. I didn't actually care about the doll. Whether she threw it away or not didn't matter to me. I'd purposely left it in a spot where a high-strung demon would likely toss it out just to see what happened. Sharon, that isn't proof, Victoria said, though she turned to look at Carla. However, I must say, Carla, interfering with another person's belongings in their own room is quite rude. I don't know what the doll looked like, but even if it seemed worthless to you, you had no right to discard it. I can see why Sharon would be so upset. Victoria patted my back gently, but calling her a demon is going too far, Sharon. Learning to deal with anger and sadness is difficult at any age, but words can be sharper than any sword. You're a bright girl. I don't need to tell you that you've said enough, do I? Okay, you're right, big sister Vicky, I chirped, turning to Carla with a wide, innocent smile. I'm sorry, Carla Senior. The doll meant a lot to me, so I've thought you were a demon ever since you threw it away. But you're right, I don't have any real evidence that you're a monster. Oh, I had plenty of evidence. I just didn't need it to kill her. Yes, well, I'm sorry too, Carla muttered, looking relieved. Let's just try to get along from now on. Okay, get along. Ha, that's the funniest thing I've heard all day. You're a piece of trash. And I'm the hero with justice on my side. Definitely. We just got off on the wrong foot, that's all, I chirped. It doesn't matter how we met. When a slake meets a frog, there's only one way the story ends. I'm looking forward to working with you, Carla Senior. The hierarchy of predator and prey is set in stone. Isn't that right, Carla? The tongue is a small limb. Yes, it can boast of great things or ignite a forest with a single spark, for the one who seeks peace must guard their words as carefully as their heart, knowing that truth is the only shield that never breaks. Chapter 50 of The Lady's Little Liability. We spent 3 days rattling along in the carriage, stopping at various villages along the way. Even though I'd technically made up with Carla, the moment we reached our destination, she split us into 2 groups. Our orders were simple. Carla and Monica would head one way, while Victoria and I would search for the suspicious individual in the other. Poor Victoria. She was the only one in the group who didn't realize this was all a setup for her own execution. Honestly, I felt like I was at a surprise birthday party. Of course, my role was to be the guy who accidentally ruins the big reveal Carla had worked so hard to plan. My heart was practically dancing with anticipation. We'll be searching on foot from here on out, Victoria said, looking down at me. I know it's a lot to ask of someone your age, so please, tell me the moment you need a break. Okay, I chirped. Victoria effortlessly hoisted my cack onto her own shoulders. Right then, let's move. She adjusted her pace to match mine, her massive 180-centimeter frame moving with a steady, practiced grace. From the perspective of a 7-year-old girl, she was an absolute titan of reassurance. Looking at her back was like staring at an impregnable fortress. The trouble was, the suspicious individual Victoria was about to face was actually a pack of demons specifically gathered to hunt the ghost of the hero. Word on the street was that the demons had sent at least 50 elite soldiers just to put down a single teenage girl. Every one of them was armed with a demonic relic, which told me exactly how serious they were. To be honest, it was complete overkill. Without me, she wouldn't stand a ghost of a chance. I suppose I might have provoked Alyssa a little too much. Whoops. But hey, look on the bright side, this was basically a buy one, get 50 free event for Sacred Arms. I really should have brought a bigger sack to carry all the loot. My, you're in a wonderful mood, Sharon, Victoria remarked. Did you find something interesting? Nope, I'm just happy to be out for a walk with big sister Vicky. We've been stuck in the Galileo Academy of Magic studying for so long, so being out here makes me really happy. Aha, well, I'm glad to hear it. But don't let your guard down too much. We have a long walk ahead of us. While this area is relatively safe, we can never be sure that a monster won't cross our path. A knight must always be at their best, though I suppose that's a bit much to ask of you. Just make sure you keep enough energy to hide behind my back if things get hairy. I will. I gave her a bright, energetic answer, but I had no intention of actually using her as a meat shield. Protect Victoria Dortona, that was the deal I made with Monica, who had risked her life to spread those rumors. I figured I owed it to Monica, who was currently stuck spending quality time with a lovely Carla, to bring back some good news. Well, not that I actually cared about Monica's feelings, obviously, and so our pleasant stroll continued for 2 days. We found traces of Legion, or the ghost of the hero, as the locals called her, but the lady herself was nowhere to be found. We keep finding evidence of something killing the local monsters, yet we can't seem to catch a glimpse of whoever's doing it. It's quite baffling," Victoria mused, letting out a rare sigh as she tossed a few dry twigs into our campfire. "Are you okay, big sister Vicky?" I asked. "Oh, yes, of course. Forgive me, a lady should never sigh like that. I'm perfectly fine, Sharon. Nothing to worry about." She was putting on a brave face, but Victoria was still only a teenager. Even with power that rivaled Lena's, she was still a girl carrying the weight of a 7-year-old's life while marching all day and spending 2 nights in the RAF. I could see the stress starting to take its toll. Even her perfectly maintained blonde ringlets were looking a little frayed at the edges. Still, the fact that she didn't find me a nuisance was impressive. I was playing the part of the well-behaved child, but Victoria refused to let me help with the night watch. A child's only job is to sleep. She'd told me. She really was something else. I'd love to see her give a lecture to Monica, who had fallen asleep and started snoring before I'd even hit the pillow on our first night together. But there was a problem. I was functioning a little too well as dead weight. At this rate, Victoria was only going to last another day or 2 before she hit a wall. "But big sister Vicky, you haven't slept at all, have you? You were the one who said a night has to be at their best. I can watch the fire for a bit, so why don't you take a nap? It'll be dangerous if a monster attacks while you're tired." "No, I'll be fine for another night. However, you're right. Once the sun is up, I'll take a 1-hour nap, and tomorrow night we shall find an inn in the nearest village. Does that sound acceptable?" "Yeah, if you're sure you're okay." Ha ha ha, to think I've made a little commoner worry about me. I truly have much to learn. To be blunt, I don't really need sleep. If Victoria had chosen to pass out right then, I could have just stepped out and slaughtered the demons currently surrounding us. But alas, her noble stubbornness had won the day. So I decided to give the audience a little nudge to help them decide it was time to strike. "It'll be dangerous if a monster attacks while you're tired," I'd said. If I were a demon listening in on that, I'd take it as a sign that the fruit was ripe for the picking. Wait, we're being surrounded. Finally, Victoria noticed, despite her exhaustion, she sensed the presence of several hostile entities closing in on our camp. She grabbed my hand and pulled me close, her body instantly tensing into a combat stance. "To intrude upon a lady's rest with such filth in your hearts, show yourselves," she commanded. In the flickering light of the campfire and the pale moon, several glints of mana appeared in the darkness, the unmistakable glow of sacred arms and demonic relics. They formed a perfect circle around us. "Jular holy armament release." Victoria drew her weapon. The practice halberd she usually used was replaced by a massive, ornate polearm that shimmered with a golden light. This was strength, one of the arcana weapons. The weapon reflected the wielder's iron will. It was a beautiful, intimidating thing that radiated a sense of courage to everyone who looked at it. In game terms, it provided a massive permanent stat boost to the user and their allies, while granting immunity to mental status effects. Even in this situation, and didn't feel a flicker of fear, though I suppose that was the buff doing its work. Usually, when I see the demon, I get a surge of excitement that burns in my chest. Today I felt oddly calm, as expected of one of the top students at the Galileo Academy of Magic. "You noticed us much sooner than we anticipated, but I'm afraid you're a little too late. I told you we should have just sniped them from the trees." "Shut up, both of you. It's time for work. The big one dies, the little one stays alive. It's a simple job, so don't you dare screw it up." From the writhing shadows, 3 distinct voices rang out. Then they stepped into the light. True protection is not merely standing in front of another, but carrying their burden in your heart. For the one who seeks to shield the weak finds that their own strength grows in the light of their selfless resolve. Chapter 51 of The Lion's Bloodline Between Demons and Humans. The scales of power are tipped from the very start. Unless you're dealing with a low-level whelp trying to pass as a person, it's almost impossible for a human to win once a demon reveals its horns and its demon core. Even with the boost provided by a sacred arm, only a tiny handful of humans can actually go toe-to-toe with a true demon. Those twisted horns, how are there this many demons this deep in the safe zone? Because the hero is dead. Obviously. Do you really not get that? Victoria Dortona stared at the protrusions crown the heads of the figures emerging from the dark. She'd only ever heard of one creature with horns like that. Demons. And they had somehow bypassed the defensive lines held by the Holy Knights. Not just 1 or 2, which would have been a disaster on its own, but over 50 of them. They must have just slipped through. No, that's impossible, Victoria thought, her mind racing despite the exhaustion. Based on the way they're talking, They were targeting me or Sharon Burner from the start. Moving a unit of over 50 takes serious planning. They didn't just stumble upon us. Shut up, Avril. You talk too much. A tall demon growled. This big one is smarter than she looks. If you keep flapping your gums, she'll start putting the pieces together, though I guess a pipsqueak like you wouldn't understand the threat of an intelligent woman. Huh, what was that? You looking for a fight? The small girl. Avril snapped back. It's the truth, isn't it? If you're a brat, at least be a quiet one. You might actually look clever for once. Shut it. Just because you're the strongest in this group doesn't mean you can talk down to me. You're just grumpy because you don't have Lady Alyssa's favour. Victoria ignored their bickering, her tired brain searching for any way to get Sharon to safety. Backup isn't coming, she realised. Even if Carla Lennon and Monica heard us, they wouldn't stand a chance. They've been gone too long to help anyway. This was perfectly timed. They've accounted for everything, and more importantly she scanned the circle of enemies. Every single one of them was holding a weapon that felt familiar. Those saluted sacred arms. Over 50 of them. It meant over 50 holy knights had already been slaughtered. She'd read the casualty reports. But seeing the numbers turned into cold steel pointed at her throat was a different kind of reality. Survival felt like a pipe dream. Any one of these demons was likely a match for her in terms of raw skill, and now she was outnumbered 50-1. So what? Victoria Dortona. If you fall here, Sharon is next. As the hope of survival flickered, she tightened her grip on her partner. The great halberd of fortitude. She would be the pillar that didn't break. Sharon, once I draw my weapon, I need you to stay back. Get as much distance as you can. Are you going to fight? Vicky, you can't. There's too many. If I can be honest for a second, the odds are definitely not in our favour. Victoria whispered, her voice steady. But don't you worry. Even if it costs me my life, I'm getting you back to that academy in one piece. Noble or not. There comes a time when a knight has to stand their ground. For Victoria, that time was now. I have a question for you lot, she called out, her voice echoing through the trees. You mentioned the name Alyssa. Tell me a truth. Were you the ones who marched into my lands and slaughtered my people? Alyssa Callisto, one of the two sisters who had raised Victoria's home. The names were burned into her soul monsters who had killed her father, her brother, and every innocent person she had sworn to protect. Huh, you think I keep track of every village we burn? Avril laughed, pointing at the emblem on Victoria's chest. Oh wait, I remember that ugly cat crest. The golden lion of the House of Dortona. Avril cackled, her twin tails bouncing. She looked almost innocent with her youthful face, but her heart was pure. Demonic rot. Now I remember. That place was fun. So, what? Were they your friends? Family? My bad. I guess I killed them. Demonic relic. Release, Avril shouted. She pulled a massive golden sword from the air. It was a hunk of gilded iron so heavy a normal person couldn't even lift it, let alone swing it. It was a weapon forged to reflect the heart of a warrior, a blade that grew stronger the more attention the wielder drew. It was meant to inspire allies and crush the spirit of enemies. Its name was the Golden Spirit, and it had belonged to Victoria's father. My name is Victoria Dortona. Remember it well. It is the name of the one who will strike you down for the pride of my father and my brother. Keep your introductions. You won't be moving much longer anyway. It's pathetic. Really, that brat behind you is just a ball and chain. Tell you what, I'll make the first move. Be grateful, okay? Despite her size, Avril moved with terrifying speed, closing the gap in her heartbeat. Are you okay? I haven't even used a boost yet. It was heavy. It wasn't just the weight of the Golden Spirit itself. Avril's raw demonic strength was far beyond what her small frame suggested. Father. Brother, please, lend me your strength. Victoria felt herself being pushed back by the sheer, artificial power of the demon. She was exhausted, having barely slept while looking after Sharon, but that was no excuse, even at her best. A demon with a demonic relic was a nightmare for a lone knight, and there were 50 more waiting in the wings. It didn't matter, winning or losing. Living or dying, the logic didn't matter anymore. I'm not giving up. Fueled by the rage of her stolen home and her murdered kin, she fought. Her mind worked overtime, calculating every move to find a way for Sharon to escape. Clash after clash, she realised she couldn't win on strength. She switched to parries, using every ounce of her technique to stay alive. 1 second, 2 seconds. She clung to the tiniest threads of opportunity, her grip failing, her muscles screaming. sustained by nothing but pure grit. You're really starting to annoy me with those eyes. You actually think you can win. You're not a hero. I even picked your daddy's sword so you could die happy. Fine. If you want to suffer, let's do it. Demonic boost. The golden spirit erupted in a blinding radiance. She's going for a vertical overhead striker finishing blow. This is my only chance. Holy armament boost. Victoria roared. She was too big to dodge. A simple block would just result in her being split in two. So, she chose the only path left. Take my arm if you have to. The blade bit deep into her left shoulder. The pain was astronomical, the weight crushing, but for one heartbeat, she ignored it. She put everything into a desperate counter-attack. Roo-ah! With the momentum of the swing, the strength of her training and every drop of mana she had left, she swung. She put the memory of her father, her brother, and her people into her right shoulder. Her grip tightened one last time as she swung the great halberd of fortitude directly at Avril's demon core. The blade connected. The halberd tore through Avril's tough hide and slammed into the core. But, ouch, did you think that would work? A little knight like you might be able to cut my skin. But you'll never break this core. The strike had stopped dead against the hard surface of the demon core. No, it's too hard. How did the hero ever break these things? That was it. That was her absolute limit. With her left arm useless and her mana spent, she had nothing left. Had enough to spare yet. Good. Die. Victoria felt the despair. She knew she couldn't win, but behind her there was still a child. I'm sorry, father. Brother, I can't join you just yet. She twisted her body at the last possible second. The golden spirit, aimed at her skull, sliced through her right shoulder instead. Ugh! She bit back her scream, blood spraying from the stumps of both shoulders. The pain was a white-hot wall. The blood loss was making her dizzy. She felt as though she were carrying a mountain on her back. Vicky, don't stay back. Both arms gone. Massive blood loss. The enemy was untouchable. The odds were 0. It was the definition of hopeless. And yet, Avril still, her mighty Victoria clamped her jaws onto the handle of the great halberd of fortitude, using her powerful core muscles to keep the heavy weapon level. She would stand her ground until her head was taken. Just like her father and brother before her, she was a lion, and she would die biting. Seriously? Is this some new trick they're teaching at the academy? You've got the persistence of a cockroach. Victoria didn't hear her. She didn't hear anything anymore. Wait, is she unconscious? She's standing up, but she's out cold. The golden glow faded from the halberd. Victoria's eyes were vacant, staring into the void. She was a corpse that refused to fall. PFFD! Ha ha ha! Look at her. Is this a masterpiece or what? Lady Rosen would have loved this. Laugh erupted from the circle of demons. They mocked her dignity. Their voices filled with derision. No one offered a word of respect for her struggle. We've done all this and the ghost of the hero still hasn't shown up. If you hadn't listened to those stupid rumors, you might have found a better way to die. Anyway, let's end this. Bye-bye. Victoria.Toner. Avril raised the golden spirit high, aiming a final, crushing blow at Victoria's defenseless head. Or she would have. Wait, what? In a flash, the world shifted. Avril's right arm was gone, severed clean at the shoulder, between the demons and the humans. The scales of power tipped from the very start. Did you call for me, you bottom feeder? The exception had finally woken up. True strength is not found in the sharpness of a blade, but in the unwavering heart that refuses to break for the sake of another. For the one who stands firm in the face of darkness will find a light they never expected. Chapter 52. The exception, to be fair. It should have been an easy job for Avril alone. Executing a single student knight was supposed to be a simple piece of housekeeping, merely the opening act before using Sharon Burner as bait to lure out the ghost of the hero. Do you really think they'll show up? The question came from Corin, a tall, introverted demon who stood in stark contrast to the petite and bloodthirsty Avril. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. Nodos, the demon leading the unit, answered with a calm, flat tone. Doubtful. If that brat was actually important to the ghost, they wouldn't have left her in a school crawling with our kind. No, the real worry is that the ghost has figured out exactly what the academy is, or at least they've started to sniff around. The timing of their appearance and those rumors spreading through the halls is just too perfect to be a coincidence. But if that's the case, wouldn't they jump at the chance to stop an execution? I thought this whole mission was a distraction to bury those rumors, Corin added. All the more reason they won't show, Nodos replied, unless they have the suicidal arrogance to take on over 50 fully armed demons single-handedly. They'll stay in the shadows. They're smart. Nodos looked out over the unit he had been assigned. It was an absurd amount of firepower for one student. He let out a dry, mocking chuckle at the sheer number of demons and demonic relics at his disposal. The Iron Maiden, the Hermit's Lantern, the Sun Sword, the Moon Shield. We know the specs of every sacred arm the Ghost has captured, and the Ghost knows we know. They've been careful, striking only when they can catch someone alone. They're cunning, which makes them predictable. In Nodos's mind, the Ghost hunting low-level beasts outside the walls of the Holy City was just a performance, a way to rattle the demons hiding in the Galileo Academy of Magic. Between the rumours and the attacks, the sleeper agents inside were probably losing their minds, but that ended today. Once Victoria d'Ortona was dead, the rumours would be buried under the shock of her execution. The ghost of the hero would be rebranded as a coward who let a comrade die rather than face a real army. Corin, don't worry about the big picture. Just focus on your timing. Nodos said, no matter how strong the enemy is, as long as you don't mess up your demonic relic, we can't lose. Even if we don't win, we can always walk away. That's a lot of pressure. Corin stammered. Are you sure someone like me is right for such a big job? Call it cowardice, or call it caution, either way. You're the perfect fit. You're a lot more reliable than the hotheads in this group. Corin's demonic relic was known as the Great Journey. Simply put, it was a warp gate. It could transport any object or person from point A to point B, regardless of the distance. She was the linchpin for the entire unit's hit-and-run tactics. Because of this, Corin herself had zero combat ability. She had to funnel almost her entire mana pool into the Great Journey just to keep it primed. If she tried to fight, she'd be useless. I'll do my best, she squeaked. Don't overthink it. It looks like the first half of the job is already done. As they spoke, Avril was finishing her work, having already severed Victoria's arms. Nodos watched with a bored expression. He didn't share the sadistic streak that most demons had. He preferred quick, efficient kills. Still, he understood the need for entertainment. After the hero died, the demons needed the screams of humans to soothe their wounded pride. In that regard, Victoria d'Ortona was a bit of a disappointment. She'd groaned in pain, sure, but she hadn't screamed once. Even now, she whirling there, holding her weapon in her teeth and glaring at them. Annoying woman. Nodos thought. Lady Alyssa was right to mark her. Every now and then, a knight appeared with a level of willpower that could bridge the gap between human and demon. Victoria was clearly one of those types. If left alive, she'd become a serious headache later. Nodos let out a long sigh, his years of experience telling him that some weeds were better pulled early. Avril raised the golden blade, ready to crush Victoria's skull. No human could survive a direct hit like that while defenseless. Nodos watched, waiting for the end, and then he saw something impossible. A flash of light, as brilliant as the midday sun, sliced through the night. It didn't just parry the blow, it severed Avril's right arm and sliced deep into her torso in a single, fluid motion. Did you call for me, you bottom feeder? Sharon Burler stood there, her small hand gripping the sun sword, the very weapon the ghost of the hero was supposed to have captured. A cold, chilling smile played on her lips. One Nodos, who had been the picture of calm, felt his heart skip a beat. Why did the bait have the sword? And how on earth had a child managed to disarm a high-level demon like Avril? Skill-triggered insight. Target Sharon Burner. Title the hero. The information flashed in his mind. For the first time in centuries, a demon felt the urge to scream. The hero. She's the hero. The bloodline of the hero had been hunted to the last drop. They had made sure of it. There was no way a hero could still exist. Unless, of course, I were a ghost. Ah, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. What is wrong with this brat? Avril shrieked, clutching the stump of her shoulder. Hair. Wow. You're dramatic. Sharon mocked. It's just one arm. Stop crying. I didn't even touch your demon core. You can save the whining for after I've cut off the other one and you're passing out from blood loss. You little monster. Idiot. You just got bit by the sun sword. Don't tell me you forgot how my gear works. Nodos realized the danger instantly. He broke his composure, shouting a warning that echoed through the clearing. Avril, don't use recovery magic. It'll trigger the blade's effect. What? The sun sword didn't just deal fire damage. It placed a mark on the target's mana. If the victim tried to use magic like, say, a healing spell, it would cause a delayed thermal explosion from the inside out. It was a weapon designed specifically to kill demons, who used mana as naturally as they breathed. Every demon had been warned about it the moment it was stolen, but the white-hot agony in Avril's shoulder had clouded her judgment. She had already pulled the trigger. The activation of her healing spell was the match that lit the fuse inside her own body. Gee, the sound she made was too short to be called a scream. It was instantly swallowed by the roar of an internal inferno. Boom! A massive shockwave rippled through the trees, accompanied by the smell of ozone and charred meat. Avril didn't just die. She was vaporized into ash. Several nearby demons were knocked unconscious by the blast, their bodies scorched, but in the center of the crater, the tiny hero stood perfectly still. She wore a cool, bored expression as she glanced at the surviving demons and smirked. "I tried to warn her," Sharon said, her voice dripping with malice. "But hey, now we've got a nice pile of demon roast that nobody wants to eat. So, try to look a little happier, guys. You've been looking for me all month, haven't you? He who digs a pit for others will surely fall into it himself, for the fire of one's own malice is a flame that eventually consumes the heart that nurtured it." Chapter 53, Far from Ruin. This was bad. Looking at Sharon's smirk, Nodos felt a chill of pure, unadulterated terror crawl up his spine. It wasn't just that she was standing in the middle of a fiery crater without a single scratch on her. What truly defied logic was the shield strapped to her left arm. It wasn't a standard piece of equipment. It was a sacred arm, the moon shield, and it was already glowing, its power fully released. Between the sun sword in her right hand and the shield in her left, Sharon was now wielding the power of both celestial bodies. And Duet Nodos gasped. A duet was the simultaneous activation of two different sacred arms. Manifesting and maintaining the power of even one such weapon demanded a staggering amount of mana, far more than any normal human body could handle. But two, in a body as small as Sharon's, the mana consumption should have turned her into a withered husk in seconds. "What's the matter?" Sharon taunted, her voice dripping with malice. "Is using a knife and fork at the same time really that big of a deal for you monsters?" A thin, crescent light shimmered across the surface of the moon shield, while the golden radiance of the sun's sword cut through the midnight gloom. Sharon stood there with a defiant grin, looking as though the massive drain on her energy was nothing more than a minor annoyance. "You're a brat who needs to be taught a lesson." Nodos snarled. "I was going to use you as bait to lure out the ghost, but if you're claiming to be the hero yourself, then this just got a lot easier. You're dying right here. You've got a lot of mouth for a bottom feeder," Sharon shot back. "You really think 50 demons are enough to take down a hero? Or did you think your little demonic relics would actually make a difference? I guess I'll have to teach your tiny, pathetic brains about the hierarchy of power. Consider the gear I'm about to loot from you a delivery fee." She was just a human, a 7-year-old kid. She barely came up to his waist, yet here she was, dual-wielding the sun and moon while throwing around thuggish insults. Nodos knew he shouldn't let her get in his head. He thought about retreating, but the risk was too high. If a hero capable of a duet was left to grow, she would become an unstoppable goddess of destruction. As the leader of the unit, he had to weigh the risks, but he didn't have time to think. One of his subordinates had already reached a breaking point. "You're the one who killed Lady Rose, and do I even need to answer that?" Sharon asked. "But fine, I'll satisfy your curiosity. Yeah, I ground her into paste. I heard she once survived a hit from a previous hero, but honestly, she was trash. Die!" Corin screamed. She activated her demonic relic, the Great Journey, on a massive scale. Dozens of distorted rifts tore open in the air around Sharon, serving as exit points for a barrage of weapons. Swords, spears, arrows, and jagged shards of iron erupted from the portals, all aimed with lethal precision at Sharon's vitals. Throat, lungs, heart, liver, kidneys. In less than 1 second, the little girl's body was shredded into a gory, unrecognizable mess. "Bark! You bastards, I'm going to tear you apart," Corin shrieked, her face twisted in rage, just like you did to Lady Rosen. Nodos hadn't had a chance to stop her. Corin had been chosen for the Great Journey precisely because of her timid nature. He had assumed she would never do anything rash. "I should have known better than to trust a trump card that plays itself," he thought bitterly. He hadn't expected Rosen's death to be such a trigger for her. Still, the result was in his favor. It's messy, but it worked. Nodos realized Corin's outburst just dealt a fatal blow to Sharon. Now was the time to finish it. "Don't take it personally, Sharon Burner," he muttered. "But you heroes are notoriously hard to kill. The history of the demon race was full of stories where a hero had survived a fatal wound. He wasn't going to let that happen, to ensure she stayed dead. Simply stabbing her vitals wasn't it enough. Demonic relic release. The tower's thunder spear, the weapon Nodos drew, was a strange polem wrapped in crackling, violet electricity. Its true power manifested the moment the lightning struck a target. I'll shut down her gear first, he planned. The mana difference might be too big for a permanent fix, but I only need 1 second. She's riddled with holes. She's bound to try her secret weapon. He was right. Gushing blood from a dozen wounds, Sharon desperately tried to manifest a new weapon, the sacred arm, innocent violence, trying to heal. Sorry, but I know all about that piece of junk, Nodos shouted. Based on reports from the Academy, Nodos knew that despite its name, the weapon's combat effectiveness was pathetic. Its only real use was as a specialized healing tool. On its own, it was harmless, but combined with a hero's natural toughness, it could be a problem. He had to close that gap. You're not going anywhere, hero. Using a great journey as a conduit, the tower's thunder spear slammed into Sharon's chest. A burst of explosive lightning tore through her, pinning her to the ground. Ah! Ah! The air filled with the sickening smell of burnt meat and ozone. The lightning strike was lethal on its own, but it also applied a crushing debuff that made it impossible to use sacred arms. It was absolute overkill for a child, but neither Nodos nor Corrin was taking any chances. Take her head, now. Nohos roared. On it, Corrin replied. Only then would the demons find peace. 50 weapons descended at once, all seeking to harvest Sharon's life. You really think, pipsqueaks, like you can pull it off? The devil's voice rang out, clear and mocking. The effect of innocent violence had been neutralized. There was no way her wounds should be healing. And yet what, how? Nodos stared in disbelief. The power of innocent violence is suppressed. I've blocked her gear. So how are her wounds closing? The holes in her body were sealing shut in the blink of an eye. Charred flesh and spilled blood were being restored to their original state. It was as if her body refused to acknowledge the damage. The demons rained blow after blow upon her. Some even charged in for close quarters combat. But Sharon didn't even bother to block. She simply stood there, letting her freakish, unnatural recovery shrug off every hit. With every strike, the demons began to feel the same sensation that had gripped Nodos. Pure, cold dread. What is this kid? Is she invincible? We have to kill her. We have to. Driven by panic, the demons made a fatal mistake. I was holding back on this one because it feels a bit like a cheat code, Sharon said, her voice airy calm. But I guess it's a bit late to worry about cheating with a sacred arm, isn't it? She raised the moon shield. The crescent light was gone. Instead, the shield was glowing with the brilliance of a full moon. Go ahead and try to block this. Sharon laughed, her eyes wide with sadistic glee. But just so you know, the main feature of this one is that it's completely unblockable. With those words, the blinding moonlight erupted from her left hand, washing over the world without mercy. True restoration comes not from the mending of the flesh, but from the strength of a soul that refuses to break. For he who relies on truth finds a well of power that the hands of malice can never dry. Chapter 54. The Silver Torrent, the Moon Shield, one of the legendary Arcana weapons. It was a sacred arm modelled after the lunar cycle. While the Sun Sword was built entirely for offense, its counterpart was heavily weighted toward defense. Well, except for one specific feature, Counter-Strike. A shield's surface, as black and deep as a cloudless midnight, shifted its patterns every time it took a hit. Like a waxing moon, it gathered light within itself, and as that light grew, so did its attack power and secondary traits. But simply blocking wouldn't draw out the cheat-level performance Sharon was bragging about. A normal user could maybe get it up to a half-moon, roughly half of its true destructive potential. That was usually more than enough to vaporize a monster or a mid-tier demon, provided you hit their demon core. But what about the other half? To move from a crescent to a full, glowing orb, the user of the moon shield had to actually take damage themselves. It was a sacred arm designed on the assumption that the wielder would get hurt. It was a flawed, almost romantic piece of equipment that no sane person could master. Luckily for Sharon and unfortunately for the demons, she was able to ignore those flaws entirely thanks to two specific skills: insensitivity and self-regeneration. They weren't exactly rare skills on their own, but at their maximum levels, they were the ingredients that turned Sharon into a monster. You lot have had your fun, now it's my turn. She pulled the trigger. A massive torrent of mana erupted from the shield. The recoil was so violent that Sharon had to plunge the Sun Sword into the dirt just to anchor herself. A blinding pillar of silver light roared forward, tearing through the circle of demons. Nodo's instincts had been dead on. The previous owner of the moon shield, who definitely was lit a demon like Rosen, had never been able to pull out this much power. Even the Sun Sword was putting out a level of destruction he'd never seen before. A hero didn't just use sacred arms. They mastered them in a way a regular knight never could. Even with over 50 demons and their demonic relics ready for an ambush, they were being completely overwhelmed. No, it was worse than that. This isn't just the ghost of the hero, Nodo's realize, his heart hammering against his ribs. She's stronger than the previous one. Even the debuffs he'd landed with the tower's thunder spear had been shrugged off. Sharon had simply overpowered his magic with the sheer volume of her own mana. She was functioning at the level of a greater demon, maybe even higher. The gap in raw power was absolute. Evade. Get out of the way. Nodo's scream. Of the roughly 50 demons in the unit, only about 1/3 managed to follow the order, and even then, it was mostly because they happened to be standing in Sharon's blind spot. Nodo's himself was only alive because of a stroke of luck. Corin, acting on pure reflex, had shoved him and herself into a rift created by the Great Journey, blinking them a few dozen yards away just as the beam passed through their previous position. The others weren't so lucky. Ha ha ha. Die. Just die already. Sharon didn't just fire the beam. She swept it in a wide, horizontal arc until the moonlight ravaged the demons, leaving them no time to even scream. It was a merciless, one-sided slaughter. Anyone caught in the light was vaporized instantly, their demon cores turning to ash and their demonic relics falling uselessly into the dirt, ready to be looted. In a single move, the demon's perfect ambush had been wiped off the map. Ugh, that was actually kind of boring. Sharon complained. The only fun part was watching the smart ones scramble like cockroaches. Sorry about that. But hey, I've got some new toys now. Want to play a different game. She had just snuffed out dozens of lives in a blink of an eye, and her only takeaway was that it was not interesting enough. Nodo's, having survived by the skin of his teeth, stared at the devilish girl as she giggled. He couldn't believe his ears. Play, he thought, his blood running cold. Is she serious? Does she think sacred arms are just toys? Actually, he was exactly right. To Sharon, these legendary weapons weren't tools for survival or justice. They were just props for her to use while she toyed with her food. Retreat. Nodo's croaked. He signaled the survivors. Their elite hunting party had been whittled down to fewer than 20. They'd lost their weapons, their comrades, and any hope of completing the mission against a hero who was only growing stronger with every kill. Staying was suicide. But sir, don't be a fool. If I say the ghost can't be killed, we leave. That was the deal. Corin, you're our ticket out of here. We have to report her existence and her power to the greater demons, or we're all dead. With a greater demon on their side, they might have a chance. Maybe, at best, it would be a coin flip, but if they let this monster get the jump on them again, they didn't stand a chance. Damn it. Nodo's cursed. This was supposed to be an easy job. Kill one student, silence one ghost who was supposed to be a way for the survivors to vent some steam after the last war. Some of them had come here thinking it was a vacation. Now, they were using their final trump card, the Great Journey, just to run away. You're leaving already, but the fun was just starting. Come on, let's try something else. Naturally, Sharon had no intention of letting them go. Holy armament release, just as the massive gate of the Great Journey began to shimmer into existence. Sharon swapped her gear. She put away the shield and pulled out a weathered lantern. The hermit's lantern, the very same weapon that had belonged to the demon Barrett. It flared to life, casting a ghostly glow over the clearing. God, the hermit's lantern, wait. I can't move now. Now, don't give me those I'm about to die faces, Sharon said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. It makes my conscience hurt, and I haven't done anything wrong yet. Right. Did you really think you could pick a fight with me and just walk away? I'm going to need you to leave all those demonic relics and your demon cores right here. Nodo's felt a bone-crushing weight settle over his body. He couldn't even twitch a finger. In his fading vision, he saw the monster approaching them with a slow, relaxed stroll. She was pulling out the sacred arms she'd just looted, checking them one by one, then putting them back like a person fumbling through a ring of keys to find the right one. The demons frozen in the clearing all realized the same terrifying truth. She wasn't looking for a key. She was picking out which blade to use for the target practice. True power is a heavy burden, for the one who wields the strength to destroy must also possess the heart to restrain, for justice is not found in the victory of the strong, but in the mercy shown when the sword is at the throat. Chapter 55, The Dark Orchestra. The fundamental advantage demons hold over humans is, quite simply, the sheer volume of mana stored within their demon cores. There are variations in scale, of course, but for a demon, this mana is as vital as the air they breathe. Humans, by contrast, are efficient little creatures. They require very little magical energy to survive. The trade-off, however, is that they are physically weak and lack the innate talent to weave complex spells. Demons evolved in the exact opposite direction. Their demon cores make magic the very foundation of their life force, granting them strength and durability that no human could ever hope to match. The mastery of magic is a given. While a human might struggle to manifest a single sacred arm, a demon can effortlessly trigger a holy armament release to draw out a weapon's full potential. Some elite individuals can even wield 2 separate demonic relics at once. In a contest of raw magical capacity, a human cannot defeat a demon that was supposed to be the one absolute rule of this world. What is the turned yet? That rule was being systematically dismantled, piece by agonizing piece. What's the matter? Don't you know how to play with these toys? Sharon asked, a voice light and mocking. If you want to get a sacred arm moving, you've got to wind the spring like this. Holy armament release, 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 release. 1 weapon would have been understandable, 2 would have been worthy of awe, but they had already seen her do that. But 3, no demon in existence, not even the greater demons, possessed a mana pool deep enough to sustain that. But this was something else entirely. I think I'll call this my orchestra. Sharon chuckled, a dark, predatory glint in her eyes. Don't worry about dying too soon. Every time one of you kicks the bucket, I just get a brand new instrument for the collection. Sharon had manifested 36 sacred arms simultaneously, and that didn't even count the sun sword, the moon shield, the Iron Maiden, or innocent violence. Was this her full power? No, this was merely a glimpse. To Sharon, these legendary weapons were quite literally toys. While humans and demons alike would cough up their very lifeblood just to keep a single sacred arm active, Sharon stood there with a bored expression, orchestrating 36 of them at once. There was no fighting back. They weren't even playing the same game. She's a monster. The words were whispered in pure, unadulterated terror. One demon, who had been lucky enough to dodge the beam from the moon shield, had finally found the right word to describe the sheer, overwhelming pressure of Sharon's mana. A monster. That's no way to talk to a pretty girl like me. Sharon laughed. But I'll take it. It's a hell of a compliment, so I think I'll start with you. It wasn't that the word monster had actually offended her. It was just that he happened to be in her line of sight, and his voice was annoying. Of course, staying silent wouldn't have saved him either. If there had been a single moment where he could have ended his life without fear, it was the heartbeat before the silver light touched him. The clearing became a stage for a symphony of screams and the mechanical hum of activated blades. Even the most vengeful human would have found no joy in this sound. There was only one entity enjoying this concert raw, concentrated violence. Sharon moved with the grace of a conductor, yet she treated the weapons with the casual disregard of someone using disposable silverware. She shredded and pierced her stationary targets one after another. Any of these wounds would have killed a human 10 times over, but demonic physiology is stubborn. Unless the demon core is vaporized, they will cling to life until their mana is utterly spent. Yet, in the middle of the carnage, Nodos refused to give up. He was only 1 step away from the portal core and had opened with the great journey. I have to get word of this thing to the greater demons, he thought desperately. I don't care who makes it out, as long as someone escapes before Corin runs out of mana. Aha, you've got all this power and you're still pretending to be a child. You're a filthy, cowardly cheat, hero. Hare, I think I'm a lot more honest than a bunch of monsters pretending to be human. Sharon countered. Or, would you prefer I put it this way? I don't take insults from trash who couldn't even kill the last hero without help from a human traitor. The shock of those words hit Nodos harder than any physical blow. What? How could you possibly know about that? How? It's obvious. Even if the last guy was a bit weaker than me, there's no way you lot could have touched him through skill or numbers alone, no matter how many schemes you cooked up. But somehow you pulled it off, and then you took over the Galileo Academy of Magic. Give me a break. You couldn't have managed that without an inside man. That's impossible, even if that's nothing but a guess. Sure, it's a guess. I wouldn't take it to a judge. That's why I decided to check your answers. Don't tell me demons are bound by some sappy bond stronger than blood or mana, please. If humans have traitors, then demons do too. There's always someone willing to sell out their own kind. Nodos felt a second wave of shock. He knew there were demons, who dreamed of a peaceful coexistence with humans, the anti-demon king faction, but they were masters of disguise, hiding even from their own kind. There was no way Sharon Burner, hero or not, could have made contact with them. She had to be lying, and yet her words about human and demon betrayals rang with a terrifying truth. She saw everything. Done stalling. I'm happy to keep chatting, or we can go back to the screaming. Sharon Burner. Instead of stepping back, Nodos lunged forward, fueled by pure desperation. He forced his body through the crushing mana pressure, his flesh tearing as he lunged with the tower's thunder spear, aiming for Sharon's heart. Oh, look at the captain go! You've got some fight in you, but honestly, even if it's an arcana weapon, I'm getting bored of seeing that one. Sharon reached out and caught the spearhead with her bare hand. She wasn't even trying to dodge anymore. She was holding back, seeing his life's work caught like a child toy. Nodos realized he didn't even have the energy left to make an excuse, but he only needed one hit. Even a glancing blow would be enough. Release's remaining mana surged into the spear, sending a bolt of lightning through Sharon's body. He didn't expect it to do damage. He knew the debuff wouldn't last more than a fraction of a second, but that was all he needed. He could take one stab. He felt the invisible weight lift for a heartbeat. The plan had worked. He didn't have time to look back at his remaining subordinates, but he knew they would understand. Without that mutual trust, he never would have found the courage for this suicide mission. I'm not dying for nothing. Nodos spat. You can have my head. But a monster like you, someone without a shred of justice, will never survive the greater demons. Here, justice. You keep using that word. You've got it all wrong. I never claimed to be a hero of justice. But the problem is Sharon's smile widened, turning into something truly demonic. Justice is on my side. I'm sorry. Nodos turned to see Corin. She was hunched over, a strange fluid leaking from every orifice of her face, muttering apologies to the empty air like a broken record. What? Nodos couldn't believe his eyes. Sharon should have been unable to use her gear. You've got it wrong. Sharon laughed, her voice shifting back to that sweet, innocent child's tone. Your body didn't get lighter because of your spear's effect. I'm not a total jerk, you know. I saw you guys were dying to jump into that weird portal, so I decided to be a pal and turn off my lantern. But hey, do you know what this is? Sharon held up a new device, a sacred arm called the runic cube. It was a 6-sided block with shifting tiles, looking like a child's puzzle. In reality, it was a weapon designed to manipulate the target's mind. Of course, a weapon that powerful usually required a mountain of mana and strict conditions to activate, none of which were an issue for Sharon. Man, you guys are stupid. I would never jump into a portal with no exit. Your friends really are fearless, aren't they? Hey, Corin. You wouldn't close the door while your friends are still inside, would you? If you did that, she would literally crush them into nothingness. Corin was the master of the great journey. She knew exactly how many of her comrades were currently inside the spatial tunnel. Usually, she was meticulous about ensuring everyone was clear before closing a rift, but her brain was no longer hers to control. Stop it, don't make me kill them, Corin wailed. Oh, well, didn't matter. Actually, yeah, you're gonna kill them. Without a hint of mercy, Sharon twisted the tiles of the runic cube. Oh, Corin felt the ownership of the demonic relics belonging to her friends, the ones currently inside the spatial rift, transfer to her demon core. She felt it happen. She felt them die. Arg. Interesting. Sharon mused. So if I use a human to manipulate someone into killing a bunch of weapon holders, the gear goes to the one being manipulated instead of me. Good to know. I'm glad my theory worked out. Thanks, Corin. You've served your purpose. You can die now. Ignoring the screams, Sharon twisted the runic cube too, 3 more times. She forced Corin's mana to redline, burning through her life force for fun until the demon crumbled into ash without Sharon ever having to touch her. It had all been for nothing. The sacrifice, the courage, the plan, everything. Look on the bright side. Nodos, you're the big winner today, Sharon said, stepping toward him. What's with that face? You should be happy. I'm going to make sure you suffer for a long time. Even though the lantern was off, Nodos couldn't move. The weight of his own powerlessness and despair was enough to pin him to the dirt. The one who seeks to deceive others often forgets the greatest deception is the one they play upon their own soul. for no amount of power can shield a heart from the consequences of its own malice, and true strength is found only in the sincerity of the spirit. Chapter 56. A Face to Face with a nightmare eliminating Victoria was supposed to be a simple matter of logistics. The real question mark was Sharon. Would using the girl as bait actually lure the ghost of the hero out of hiding? Even with a strike force of 50 elite demons armed with demonic relics and absolute crushing advantage, Carla couldn't shake the knot of unease tightening in her gut. That phantom pressure she'd felt from the ghost before was still haunting her. So I guess the ghost of the hero isn't showing up. Huh? It would seem so. The silence of the woods was heavy, and it was Monica who finally cracked under the pressure of the brooding atmosphere. They had been marching for over one full day since parting ways with Victoria. From Carla's perspective, this entire trek was nothing but a waste of time, a fake search mission designed solely to provide her with an alibi. Still, Monica's presence served a purpose. Though the girl was widely considered a failing student at the academy, her complete lack of power made her the perfect pawn for Carla's needs. It's a pain in the neck having to babysit a human, Carla thought bitterly, but I need a witness. I'll keep you alive just long enough to see the show. The plan required someone to bring the news of Victoria's tragic end back to the school, and Monica was the ideal candidate. There were two reasons for this. First, in this monster-infested region, a girl who couldn't even manifest a sacred arm was forced to stay glued to Carla's side for protection. And second, you're a loudmouth, Carla mused. You've spent the last 1 month spreading those nasty rumors. The least you can do is help me clean up the mess. The rumor that demons were nesting within the Galileo Academy of Magic had spread like wildfire. While the demons hadn't pinned down the exact source yet, they knew Monica had been one of the primary mouthpieces. To Carla, a bottom-tier student like Monica was essentially human garbage. Her death wouldn't carry enough weight to quiet the rumors, but if a witness like her returned to tell the story of how a legendary talent like Victoria was slaughtered, the shock would bury the gossip for good. Hey, I know this is a weird time to ask, but Carla, you're not a demon, right? Despite sharing a room for over 1 month, the friendship between Monica and Carla was practically non-existent. The fault lay entirely with Monica. She had spent the last few weeks actively avoiding Carla for no apparent reason. Even though they slept in the same bunk bed, Monica made sure they were never alone together, always making sure Lena or Sharon was standing between them. Carla, for her part, was far too busy to waste time on a useless underachiever. Their relationship had settled into the awkward, polite distance of strangers who happened to live together. Now, the failure had finally worked up the nerve to bring up the one topic everyone was whispering about. Give me a break, Monica. We've lived in the same room for weeks. If I were a demon, you'd be dead by now. Do I really look like a monster to you? Of course, that was a lie. If she were a mindless, savage beast, sure, she would have eaten her. But Monica had no way of knowing the academy was actually a farm designed to manage sacred arms and their human wielders. At least, she wasn't supposed to know. Oh yeah, totally. You don't look like well at all. It's just, well, I'd spent time around some people whose outside appearance doesn't exactly match their inside, you know. Are you talking about Sharon? I suppose she does get a bit aggressive when she draws her sacred arm. Ha yeah, something like that. Sharon Burner. To the demons hiding in the school, she was the highest priority target for observation and protection. She had been captured by Rosen, the sister of the greater demon Alyssa, only to be rescued by the ghost of the hero. As far as they knew, she was the only human who had seen his face and lucky the only one with a direct link to him. Sharon's sacred arm was an odd one. It granted her incredible regenerative abilities and a boost to her combat drive. It was a mid-tier weapon at best, but certainly more useful than whatever sacred arm Monica was failing to summon. I just hope the execution squad doesn't get carried away and kill Sharon too. Carla worried. The girl was their only real leverage against the ghost of the hero, that terrifying creature whose very voice made Carla's skin crawl. The soldiers were bloodthirsty, which was usually a good thing, but they needed to keep their cool until the boast was dead. The idea of not having Sharon under our thumb is too scary to think about. Carla shuddered. I know Lady Alyssa wants to wait until the girls are official knights before ending them, but I'd feel a lot better if that ghost was already in the ground. If she never had to hear that hideous, distorted voice again, it would be too soon. Carla ground her teeth, trying to suppress the memory of her own cowardice. When she had stood before the ghost, she hadn't even been able to draw her silent sadism daggers. She'd been too paralyzed by fear to fight. Even now, a month later, she saw Nora's charred remains every time she closed her eyes. But, as much as she hated herself for it, a part of her was relieved. She was still alive because she hadn't turned around. She had abandoned her friends to save her own skin. It was the piece of a coward. If she had looked back that day, maybe Barrett and Nora's deaths would have meant something. She knew that better than anyone. That was why she had to kill the rumors their deaths had started. She had to protect this pathetic loser of a student just long enough for her to spread the truth about Victoria's death. One last time, Monica said, her voice dropping an octave, "Carla, you're really not a demon. Monica, I'll let it slide a second time because we're roommates, but there won't be a third. Under normal circumstances, such an accusation would be the ultimate insult." Carla had only tolerated it the first time to maintain her cover and try to build some semblance of a rapport. She'd tolerated it the second time because, deep down, she found Monica's trembling fear amusing. "No, that's fine. Sorry. As long as you're not a demon, we're good. Don't worry about it. But if by some crazy chance you were a demon, he's coming. The ghost. You sound awfully sure of yourself. Monica, do you actually know something about the ghost of the hero? Who, me? No, not a thing. Not a single clue. Insight mastery triggered. Target Monica house. Deception detected. Monica, you okay? So that was a lie. I'm not a great actress, honestly. I'm okay at hiding. But lying to your face, not my thing. To be honest, I have a pretty good idea who he is." Despite her casual tone, Monica's face was pale and twitching. She was clutching her stomach as if she were about to be sick, but Carla didn't care about the girl's health. "Not now." "What? Then you need to report to the professors immediately. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" "Look, I like being alive as much as the next girl, and honestly, I'd rather pick a fight with every demon in the world than betray that kid. It's a much safer bet." Carla stared at her, completely bewildered. What is this failure talking about? She's speaking as if she knows there are demons among the teachers. And who does she mean by that kid? "You lied to me, Carla, though I guess I lied to you too." Suddenly, a very air felt like lead. A crushing wave of pressure and raw terror slammed into them. It was a presence that screamed of absolute power, triggering every survival instinct Carla possessed. Under the pale light of the moon, both girls felt the shadow of a predator fall over them. Damon found you a massive, hulking figure stepped out from the trees, towering even over someone as tall as Victoria. A raspy, halting voice sounding like 20 people trying to speak through a single throat leaked from its head. "Ha ha, this is bad. It's already reached phase 2. Just how many monsters and demons has it been eating?" Monica gasped. What is that thing?" Carla stammered. It was Legion. The composite being Barrett had created from 22 dying knights, the very entity that had become the ghost of the hero stood before them. The truth is a mountain that remains unmoved by the winds of deceit, and though the hypocrite hides behind 1,000 veils, the light of reality eventually reveals the heart's true colours. Chapter 57 of the Relic of Slaughter. Could anyone truly believe that this humanoid nightmare was once 22 brave knights, while she still bore the silhouette of a woman? Legion's hulking frame and massive, corded arms were something far beyond human understanding. She radiated a hatred so thick it made the air itself shiver. It was the concentrated fury and grief of souls whose very existence had been desecrated, and now that malice was baring its teeth at Carla and Monica. The shriek vibrated through their very bones. It wasn't a battle cry meant to herald a strike. It was a pure, raw expression of agony. It was the collective, broken wail of 22 people trapped in a single vessel, twisted into a chaotic mess of mind and body. Tears streamed from her horrific eyes, thick, dark red droplets. In that clearing, only Monica understood the true weight of those tears. "Carla, get back. Something was coming." Carla had no idea how failure like Monica could have predicted the strike, but her instincts as a predator were momentarily overruled by her survival instincts as a target. "Don't parry. Move." It was the right call. A massive blade something between a sword and a spear swung in a wide, horizontal arc. It whistled to the exact space where Carla's demon core had been a heartbeat before. Monica had the meta-knowledge. Carla had the unnatural speed of her silent sadism technique. Even with those advantages, it was a split-second escape. If they hadn't started moving the moment they laid eyes on her, Monica would have been caught in the swing, and without the warning, Carla would have been dead on the spot. A foul stench filled the air, the smell of blood, raw meat, and rendered fat. It was a sickening, biological odour emanating from Legion's weapon. She drew the massacre armament. Monica hissed, her face twisting as if she'd bitten into something rotten. It wasn't a sacred arm, nor was it a demonic relic. It was exactly what the name implied, a tool for total slaughter. The original sacred arms used to create it had been drowned in the hatred of their wielders, warping into a grotesque fusion of bone and gristle. The blade was made of jagged bone, held together by pulsing, twitching muscle and veins. It was too macabre to be categorized as a mere weapon. It was the massacre armament, a living, breathing relic forged from the literal flesh and blood of the 22 sacrifices. Just as a predator is born with claws and fangs, this weapon was the natural extension of Legion's will. A cold sweat broke out on Carla's forehead. The realization that she would have been killed without the warning was terrifying enough, but the sudden shift in Monica was worse. The girl she'd dismissed as a useless underachiever clearly knew things she shouldn't. Monica, what the hell, how did you know that was coming? What else are you hiding? A lot of things. Carla, for starters, would it make you feel better if I told you this thing is the result of Barrett and Nana's Twister human experiments? What? It was like a bucket of ice water to the face. Carla knew those two had been messing around with Soma and human subjects, but the project had supposedly vanished along with them during the Ghost of the Hero incident. Since the researchers were dead, no one had bothered to look for the results. If the demons nesting in the academy didn't even know this thing existed, how did Monica? Should I kill her? I definitely should. I know you're looking at me like you want to end me, Monica said, her voice strained, but neither of us has the luxury for that right now. You can see that, can't you? You've got a lot of nerve, Carla growled. Don't you think I'll just kill you the second we get out of this? Please. We're not out of this yet. Not by a long shot. And yeah, if you survive, you'll probably try to kill me, but since we're both likely to die here, I figured we might as well have one last heart-to-heart. Monica was clearly terrified, but her fear was focused entirely on Legion. She didn't seem to view Carla as a threat at all. That realization stung Carla's pride more than anything else. Are you saying you're not afraid of a demon? Are you kidding? You guys kill people like you're swatting flies. Of course I'm terrified. Then why did you warn me? If you'd just kept your mouth shut, that monster would have done your dirty work for you. For the first time, Monica looked Carla in the eye. Behind her thick glasses, her gaze was uncharacteristically soft and deeply sad. Because I've seen the version of you that can stand by a human's side. That's why I saved you. What are you talking about? Carla was genuinely baffled. She had no way of knowing about the redemption route from the original game, a series of events where Carla eventually betrays the demons. In this timeline, Carla hadn't even considered such a thing. She was a loyal soldier through and through. Monica knew she couldn't convince her, but in a moment of selfish weakness, she had reached out to that other Carla just once, but once was all she could afford. Hi. Crap. Carla realized she couldn't keep her human disguise up any longer. She dropped the facade, a demonic aura flaring as she drew her demonic relic. Silent sadism. She had to make a choice. The smart play was to kill Monica and then try to put down Legion, the mess her colleagues had left behind. But Carla knew her limits. She wasn't a greater demon. She couldn't juggle two lethal problems at once. She made her decision. Don't you forget this, Monica. The second we're back at the academy, you're dead. I don't care what it takes, I'm going to make you scream everything you know. Legion was the bigger threat. Monica was just a bug she could squash whenever she felt like it. Once they were back within the school walls, she'd have all the time and tools she needed to break the girl. Carla intercepted Legion's strike with silent sadism. Against a brute force monster like this, speed and technique were her only chances. Actually, calling them chances was generous. Her only real option was to dodge. When she tried to block a glancing blow, the heavier armor of silent sadism was sheared off like paper. From that moment on, Carla abandoned all thought of defense. That's not going to happen, so I thought I'd give you a head start, Monica said, her voice strangely fat. If you make it out of here, Carla, don't go back to the academy. Not if you want to stay alive. You're just a failure who can't even summon a weapon. Carla screamed, lunging at Legion. Stop acting like you're better than me. Between the mystery of Monica, the fact that Legion wasn't even looking at the human, and the sheer, overwhelming pressure of the fight, Carla's mind was a mess. She let out a roar and slashed at the monster. It was her first real opening one strike found after dodging 50 of Legion's, but the blade did nothing. It hit the creature's dense muscle and stopped dead, unable to even reach the bone. A failure who can't summon a weapon. Monica sighed. Look, Carla, I'm sorry, but against Legion, The only winning move is to run, and I'm taking the first exit. What? Carla didn't have a second to spare, but the sheer absurdity of the comment forced her to look. Monica had been lying about being weak. She had been hiding her power the entire time just to keep the demons off her scent. But now she was done hiding. Holy armament released the chariot's triumph. The failure reached out, and for the first time, her true sacred arm manifested in a brilliant burst of light. A heart that seeks to save even an enemy reveals a glimpse of the divine. For true mercy is not found in the absence of danger, but in the choice to hold on to one's humanity when the world turns to shadows. Chapter 58, The Fastest Sacred Arm, the Chariot. The 7th Arcana. The card usually depicts a young man riding a two-wheeled chariot pulled by two horses, or sometimes sphinxes. Its meaning the victory, success. Monica understood better than anyone that the intended meaning of her Arcana had absolutely nothing to do with her. Her life had been a series of desperate maneuvers to avoid death, a constant carrying to keep from being killed. Victory and success were concepts from a world she didn't live in, but that was fine. She never intended to win every battle life threw her way. You just have to win where it counts. You can afford to lose everything else. Running away is a win in my book, she whispered. In this situation, Monica's victory condition was simple escape from Carla and Legion with all her limbs intact. The weapon she manifested was a vehicle that, at first glance, seemed impossibly unbalanced, two wheels arranged in a single vertical line. A low, subterranean rumble erupted from its sleek, aerodynamic frame as it began to burn through her mana. The body was a minimalist monocrib painted in stark shades of white and black. Monica loved it. The demons had mocked this sacred arm, calling it a piece of junk on wheels. She had let them. She needed to deceive them, though it would be a lie to say her pride hadn't stung just a little. Monica swung her leg over the chariot's triumph and gripped the handles, which flared out like small metallic wings. Monica, don't you dare run! Carla screamed. Under normal circumstances, Carla could have closed the distance and ended Monica before she even found the starter, but for this one moment, Legion stood in her way, a wall of mindless violence. At that same moment, Carla felt a cold spike of intuition. If that machine started moving, Monica was gone. I'm still just a cowardly, pathetic failure, Monica said, her voice steady. The chariot's triumph. I think it's time I changed your opinion of my ride. Vroom! The exhaust let out a deafening roar. That was the starting pistol. Legion was the first to react. Instinctively sensing that its prey was about to bolt, the monster shifted its focus from Carla to Monica. Car saw the opening. Now that Legion wasn't pinning her down, she sprinted forward, determined not to let the human escape. But there was one factor they had both overlooked. Monica was the weakest person here in terms of strength and stamina, but when it came to the most vital element of an escape speed, she was a league of her. Let's go clinging to the handles so she wouldn't be thrown. Monica flooded the machine with her mana, as if snarling at its master's hesitation. The chariot's triumph accelerated with an explosive boom. Legion lunged in response, its massacre armament ready to strike. Won't let to. The monster's body convulsed. Bones snapped and muscles shifted as its joints bent backward. Assuming a terrifying, beast-like posture, it dropped low, its face nearly scraping the dirt, and began to run by hammering its massive arms into the ground. It was the sprint of an apex predator, but even a monster at the peak of biological speed was no match for the machine. The chariot's triumph began to pull away, the gap between them widening inch by agonizing inch. On a straight track, no living thing could catch her. Carla, however, was still in the race. Her silent sadism technique granted her incredible agility. In terms of sheer mobility and cornering, she was a match for the machine. With a burst of speed that tore up the earth, Carla overtook Legion and leaped into the air. Demonic boost. Die, you failure! Monica was hunched over the bike, her back completely exposed. She looked defenseless. Carla showed no mercy, putting everything into a mid-air dropkick aimed directly at Monica's spine, her sharpened heels leading the way. Holy armament boost. Monica countered. She had been waiting for the move. With a sharp metallic clink, the rear of the chariot's triumph transformed. Multiple exhaust ports extended from the chassis, shifting to optimize the bike's aerodynamics for a pure speed burst. As Carla closed in for the kill, the ports let out a sudden, violent eruption of flame and smoke. TCH, a smoke screen. It was a flashy explosion that carried very little actual force. It barely singed a few strands of Carla's hair, but when the smoke cleared, Carla froze. Far, Far in the distance, Monica was already a tiny speck on the horizon. How my silent sadism can't keep up! The chariot's triumph was a weapon specialized for one thing and one thing only: forward momentum. On a straight path, neither a two-legged demon nor a four-legged monster could ever hope to catch a heavyweight motorcycle. Realizing she had been utterly outclassed in a contest of speed, Carla skidded to a halt, the weight of her failure letting the only person who knew their secret and the only lead to the ghost escape hit her like a mountain of lead. And that was when Legion kicked her squarely in her unprotected back. 3 days had passed. His body had burned and exploded. That was the only memory Avril had. He had been incinerated from the inside out. By all rights, he should have been dead. And yet, Larvae, GWH, what happened? The memories were a blurred mess of pain. Sharon Burner had severed his arm with the sun sword. Then his own body had turned into a bomb because he'd panicked and used the wrong magic. He understood why he'd blacked out, but where was everyone else? Had they killed the girl? Had they captured her? He looked around the clearing and saw nothing. No one. Are you done sleeping? You were in pretty bad shape. The voice sent a jolt of ice-cold terror through Avril's broken body. What? Sharon Burner. The little girl who was actually the ghost of the hero. She was standing right there, looking down at him with an expression of mock concern. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Not only were his comrades gone, but Sharon was standing there without a single scratch on her. What's wrong? Did the explosion rattle your brain? That's too bad. I really hate killing bad guys who don't even realize they've committed a crime. It takes all the fun out of it. She sounded like a sweet 7-year-old. But the malice dripping from her words was undeniable. This was bad. His arm was gone. His team had vanished into thin air, and he was alone with a monster. Avril felt like he was reaching for the lid of a box that should never be opened. My team, what did you do to them? He had to ask. He already knew the answer, but he had to hear it. Well, they aren't here anymore. Are they? I think you can do the math. It was that simple. You're lying. Are you only alive because you were the first one to go down? Heh, you're such an optimist. Did you really think I'd leave a bunch of pests alive out of the goodness of my heart? Sharon began to toss a bright red gemstone into the air, catching it lazily with one hand like a child playing with a marble. It was a demon core, and it was still pulsing with life. No, the moon shield was way more fun than I expected. Sharon laughed. I'm not quite done playing yet. Since you lot showed up without an appointment, the least you can do is provide some entertainment. Right. Avril, he who believes that speed or strength can outrun the truth will find that the earth eventually catches up, for a life spent in pursuit of the worldly is a journey without a destination, while the heart at peace finds its home in every step. Chapter 59. The revenge match the crimson gemstone Sharon was tossing carelessly in her palm belonged to Nodo's. The fact that the wielder of a demonic relic like the tower's thunder spear had been reduced to a literal plaything was more than enough to plunge Avril into the deepest pits of despair. His weapon was supposed to seal sacred arms. Avril thought, her mind screaming, and there were 50 other elite warriors with him. How is this possible? Sharon's appearance was a mess. Her clothes were shredded and singed, and her skin was stained so deeply with blood it looked as though she'd been dipped in a vat of red paint. Yet, through the holes in her uniform, Avril could see that the pale skin beneath was flawless. Not a single scratch, bruise, or burn remained on the girl's body. Avril had faced powerful enemies before, but the creature standing in front of her, the thing wearing the face of Sharon Burner, surpassed them all. Ha! Look at that face. You look like a fish on a chopping block. What do they call that? A bottom feeder. It was a blatant provocation. In any other situation, Avril would have snapped and charged, but in this nightmare, she didn't have the luxury of acting on impulse. Why did you leave me to live? She spat. Sharon could have ended her a dozen times over. The wound she'd taken from the sun's sword earlier would have been lethal even to a veteran knight, let alone a commoner. It wasn't mercy. Avril knew that much. She tightened her grip on the golden spirit and tried to figure out her next move. It's about that toothpick you're holding, Sharon said, pointing a blood-stained finger at the sword. I heard that belonged to Vicky's old man. The first round didn't go so well for her, but I figured she deserved a Most Improved Player award or something, so I decided we're going to have a rematch. Sharon reached out and patted the shoulder of Victoria Dortona, who was currently kneeling on the grass with her head bowed. Her answer cut them off. How? Avril gasped. They were back. The arms that Avril had systematically severed with the golden spirit were attached to Victoria's torso as if they had never been missing. There wasn't even a scar to mark where the blades had passed through. "Why are you so surprised?" Sharon chuckled. "I'll admit, it was a bit of a clumsy mistake on my part. I've been leaning so hard on my natural regeneration skill that I completely ignored my recovery magic. I spent a whole month devouring every book in the school library just to hit level 1. I could barely keep someone from bleeding out at first, but look at me now. After slaughtering 50 of your little friends, the skill is finally maxed out. 50 demon lives to save 1 human. Seems like a pretty fair trade in this world, doesn't it? 50 demons for 1 human." The sheer, twisted logic of Sharon's scale made Avril's blood run cold. "Don't you dare, human life is nothing compared to the life of a demon." "Oh, what a coincidence. I feel the exact same way." Sharon beamed. "I don't care how many demon lives you pile up on that scale. They'll never be worth as much as a single human hair." Before Avril could respond, Sharon reached into the air and pulled out a new sacred arm with a runic cube. "No, not that one." Avril braced herself. "She's starting with the runic cube." She knew what that weapon could do. It was a terrifying tool designed to dominate. Depending on the mana used, it could seize control of a target's mind, their thoughts, their mana flow, and every single nerve in their body. When the demons first saw it, they thought it was just a strange toy box. Unfortunately for the previous owner, the moment the demons realized its true value, they made sure to turn that owner into experience points immediately. The strategy for beating it was simple. It could only control 1 person at a time. Like the hermit's lantern, the user was completely vulnerable while the weapon was active, unless they were a greater demon. Normally, you'd just swarm the user while they were busy puppet mastering someone else. But Avril was alone. Well, she had the demon core of Nodos, but he wasn't exactly in a condition to help. The only threat was Sharon Burner. Victoria should have been a non-factor, but Sharon had other plans. "You should probably stop staring at me," Sharon warned. "Like I said, this is a rematch." She twisted the tiles of the runic cube. A sickening, mechanical click echoed through the clearing. In that instant, the noble, protective spirit of Victoria Dortona was snuffed out, replaced by a raw, bestial instinct. The 6-foot-tall woman stood up. She gripped strength, her golden halberd, but her posture had changed. She was hunched forward, her eyes vacant and glazed. The elegance and grace she had shown during their first duel were gone. The Victoria standing there now was a weapon, and Sharon was the one pulling the trigger. "You're insane," Avril screamed. "Using a sacred arm on your own comrade." "I'm perfectly sane. If I used it on you, the fight would be over in a second, and where's the fun in that? I tried running a mana overload test on Corin earlier, and man, was it a letdown. It was like watching a very expensive firework that forgot to go off." Corin was dead, which meant the unit's only way home the great journey was gone. Avril wanted to believe the girl was lying, but looking at what she had done to Nodos, there was no reason for Sharon to make up a story. "I'm going to kill you. I've heard that one before." Usually right before they turn to ash, Sharon mock. Avril leveled the golden spirit and charged Sharon. The girl was wide open, her attention seemingly focused entirely on fiddling with the cube in her hands. "I can do this," Avril thought. She swung the golden blade with everything she had, aiming to take Sharon's head. Rematches are all about breaking bad luck, Sharon mused, not even looking up as the blade whistled toward her neck. "Tell you what, I'll give you an incentive. If you can actually kill Vicky here, I'll let you walk away. How's that for a deal?" Sharon twisted the cube again. Click. In the heartbeat before the blade touched Sharon's skin, a massive force slammed into Avril's sword, parrying it with ease. "What? You useless doll." Victoria's halberd had intercepted the strike. She stood there with a hollow expression, devoid of any presence or fighting spirit, yet her raw physical strength had spiked to impossible levels. No. It was more than just strength. Victoria's body was literally screaming under the pressure. Her bones were groaning, and her muscles were beginning to tear themselves apart from the sheer output Sharon was demanding of her frame. It was obvious that Victoria didn't have the base stats to sustain this kind of power, but that didn't matter. "Heal." Sharon glanced at Victoria's mangled arms and whispered the command. The word was thick with mana, and in an instant, Victoria's flesh knit back together, her strength fully restored. A basic healing spell did that. Avril cried out, "Nope, it's a basic healing spell powered by the deaths of 50 elite demons." Sharon corrected, "You guys love stealing human lives to power your gear, so don't you dare start crying about unfair tactics now." Victoria lunged, delivering a kick so powerful she broke her own leg in the process. Avril barely managed to block it, but the force of the impact sent her reeling. That was when the horror of the situation finally hit her. This was the true power of the runic cube in the hands of a monster. Sharon wasn't just controlling a puppet. She had created an immortal, berserk warrior. Victoria would break herself over and over again to kill her target, and Sharon would simply fix her with a word. She had turned an ally into an infinite, self-repairing engine of slaughter. The one who treats a fellow soul as a mere tool for their own design has already lost their own humanity, for true strength is found in the heart that seeks to uplift, while the one who pulls the strings of another's will only entangles themselves in the shadows of their own making. Chapter 60 of Vengeance unleashed every time she threw a punch or took a lethal hit. Victoria's body shrieked as it was torn apart, only to be stitched back together a heartbeat later by Sharon. It was a hellish cycle of destruction and rebirth that would have driven a normal person insane 10 times over. If anyone other than Sharon had been at the controls of the runic cube, Victoria would have collapsed from the sheer mental and physical strain long ago. To put it bluntly, it was like watching a child play with a stuffed doll, swinging it around with reckless abandon. Arms might pop off, legs might snap, the child doesn't care. The only difference here was that Sharon was an expert at fixing her toys the second they broke, while Victoria remained unconscious, functioning only as a vessel for Sharon's mana. Avril felt the walls closing in. I can kill her. I know I can. She's just a human. I'm an elite soldier serving Lady Alyssa, so why can't I touch her? The hope she had clung to was shriveling up. It was a sickening realization. Avril felt as though Victoria's limbs were getting denser and more resilient with every strike she parried with the golden spirit. No, it wasn't an illusion. It was actually happening. Avril was still missing her right arm, and though her self-regeneration skill was working overtime, the internal explosion she'd suffered earlier had rattled her demon core. She was a long way from 100%, but even so, losing to a mere student was unthinkable. The physical gap between a demon and the humans they hunted was supposed to be a fundamental law of nature, one that couldn't be overcome by a few weeks of training, and yet the stalemate had shifted. Avril was being pushed back. The intervals between Sharon's healing spells were growing longer because Victoria was simply taking less damage. Should I use magic? Avril wondered, but the lingering venom from the Sun Sword was still circulating in her veins. Every tool in the demonic arsenal was being systematically countered by the devilish little girl wearing an angelic smile. Sharon Bernard. Avril didn't need her insight skill to tell her the truth anymore. The 7-year-old was the ghost of the hero. It was the only explanation that made sense of her fallen comrades. Even if she was just a pawn in this monster's game, Avril refused to go down quietly. If you're going to bark, at least finish off Vicky first. Sharon taunted. Oh, are you surrendering? Sorry, but I only accept 2 types of reports of victory speeches or pathetic death rattles. Pick one. Then try this on for size. I'm taking this human woman and you straight to hell with me. Hear my victory cry and die. The moment those words left Avril's lips, Sharon's eyes changed. For the first time, a flash of genuine, cold hostility flickered in those golden depths. Oh, I see. You were planning to use the debuff from the Sun Sword to trigger a self-destruct. You talked a big game. So I was actually expecting something clever. Turns out your trump card is just a pathetic little suicide stunt. Sharon looked like a child whose playtime had been interrupted by a fly, or a master strategist annoyed by a clumsy interloper. She snapped her fingers. In an instant, the curse of the Sun Sword vanished from Avril's body. WH what? That's against the rules, Sharon said fatly. If you die now, it counts as me killing you, and where's the fun in that? Did your big victory move just disappear because I snapped my fingers? Come on, let's hear it again. Tell me all about how you're going to turn this around. The act plunged Avril back into the abyss of despair. It wasn't just that Sharon had dispelled a legendary curse with a casual gesture, or that her last-ditch effort had been swatted away like a gnat. It was the fact that Sharon didn't even consider it a threat. Even if Avril could use her magic, Sharon wasn't worried. The girl was holding back. Despite puppet mastering a high-tier knight with the runic cube, the devil known as Sharon Berner hadn't even begun to fight seriously. How much more do you plan on mocking me? Avril screamed. Until I'm bored, obviously. Or maybe you think your pride will stay intact if I just beat you into the dirt more clearly. Fien. If that's what you want, don't expect a quick death. As she delivered the sentence, Sharon drew another weapon. A silver gauntlet materialized on her hand, the sacred arm. Innocent violence. Holy armament boost. Attribute enchant. Responding to the command, a brilliant silver light erupted from innocent violence, flowing into the runic cube. From there, the energy was funneled directly into Victoria's body. The glow surrounding the tall knight was not as intense as the source, but it was unmistakable. Attribute a light, the one element that no demon, no matter how powerful, could ever hope to resist, the ultimate weapon for the extermination of her kind. How, or a ghost, how can you wield the light? Avril didn't have time to process the fact that Sharon was now using a duet of multiple weapons. The moment that silver radiance hit her retinas, she felt a primal, bone-deep fear. As long as she was a demon, she was hardwired to fear that light the same way a beast fears fire. Who cares about the how? Sharon asked. Think of it this way, it's more rewarding for you to be killed by a hero who can actually use the light. Right. It makes you look like less of a loser. Sharon tapped her own neck with a finger, as if inviting Avril to try and take her head. The dead hero had returned no. This was something much worse. The previous hero had been a warrior, someone who collected sacred arms out of duty. This creature was a sadist. How do you even kill something like this? Sharon could have ended this at any time. If she had used the light from the start, she wouldn't have even needed the sun sword. She had possessed more than enough power to slaughter all 50 elites without breaking a sweat. I'm only alive because what? You think it was fate? Sharon chuckled. If the boss is an idiot, I guess the underlings are too. I've been holding back from the start. If there's any meaning to you still breathing, it's because Vicky needs the experience points. Simple as that. That was the official reason, at least. Anyway, enough talk. Let's get back to the match. Caught your breath yet? Thud. I'd hate for you to pass out too soon, but be careful if you touch Vicky's body now. You'll turn to ash instantly. It's a bit cool to tell you that now, after you worked so hard for that participation trophy, but hey, did you really think I'd let you escape? With those words, Sharon pulled out yet another weapon, a flickering, eerie lantern, the hermit's lantern. She had set the stage. Every tool was in place to prolong the agony of her prey and watch the finale from the best seat in the house. Sharon wore a grin that was hideously out of place on such a beautiful face. Thanks for playing the villain for Vicky's revenge story. Avril, make sure you scream nice and loud for me at the end. The silver-clad titan, gripping the halberd of fortitude, took a heavy, deliberate step forward, drawn by the devil's sweet whispers. The silent knight moved to claim her vengeance, closing the distance between herself and the trembling demon. Vengeance is a cup that never quenches thirst, for fire of hatred only leaves the soul parched and hollow. True peace is found not in the destruction of the enemy, but in the strength to rise above the shadows of the past and walk toward the light of a new dawn.